Morning or evening. I see some of you saying good evening. Some saying good morning. Some saying good evening. What's happening, folks? Good to see y'all. Gary Walker says, absolute quality demo this week. Thanks. I think you're talking about the Reverb Pedal, right? Yeah. That was a fun one. I love this thing, actually. It's the only video I managed to get out this week for a couple different reasons. I'm running into a little bit of a problem where a lot of people these days that I make videos for, they want me to put it out at a certain time, schedule things. So I'll start a project and then they'll say, oh, can you put it out in 3 weeks? And then it's like, because I'm like already 2 days into working on something. And then it's like, well, now I don't have any content for this week. So I need to figure out how to balance that. Part of what I do with making these videos is trying to maintain some sort of independence of, but you know, if you're dealing with people releasing products and stuff, it's like you can't put them out early, or you know, if they're like this thing this week, I won't mention what it is, but it's just like it was a thing where they're you know, doing a special thing for it. So it's like they're like, oh, we want to coincide. So like I try and work with people on that stuff, but it does kind of screw with your workflow a little bit. And I guess that is on me to come up with videos that also don't have anything to do with making videos for some of these companies, balancing things out and stuff like that. But there's always a quality problem. I'm not complaining, but there's always a backlog of those. So it's like there's always people waiting. They always want you to get stuff done. And then you go, all right, this one's next, and you'll do it. And then somebody will go, but I don't want it to come out for 3 weeks. And you find that out a couple days into making it. It's just an organizational thing, I guess. Thanks for listening to my problems. Not really problems, just, you know, typical. Who's here? We got Sweden in the house. Mason, Sweden, what's happening? We got BC Rich wishing everybody a happy Super Bowl Sunday. Stay distant from people, folks. Watch the football on your own. Dan Pfeiffer says, I got some Thornbuckers for my Les Paul and PRS. Couldn't be happier. That's awesome. I'm glad you're digging them. David's in snowy England. Wow, that's interesting. I was going to show you guys the Reverb pedal. Yeah, right. This thing. Love this thing. Sounds great. There's a lot of people that are like comparing it to the Big Sky, like in comments and stuff like that. Is it better? Is it, you know, it's different. It's like the Big Sky is much more of a smorgasbord of reverb, right? Whereas this is a, you know, recreation of it's essentially Lex 224, right? Which is a specific digital reverb from the late 70s that, you know, back in the day was like, I don't know, were they like $7,000 or something? It was like, which was a deal at the time because it was half the price of the AMS, which, you know, and so like, obviously the only people buying them were big recording studios. But, you know, yes, it's expensive, but part of the price thing with these pedals is number one. So it's co-designed with Maris. And so you got two companies involved and everybody needs to make their R&D cut and all that. And then also you got these moving faders, which trust me, they feel like a fader on a nice mixer. You know, these can't be cheap. I mean, the difference between the price of your typical pot on a pedal and then these things, which are motorized, has got to be huge. There's got to be at least a couple $100 in the cost, I would say, is there. When companies make, not everybody follows this, but if they want to stay in business, they probably do. When companies make a product, I'm told that whatever the part costs for them, it's 3 times that in cost to the end user, because you've got distributor usually in the middle, and then you've got the dealer at the end, and everybody needs to make theirs. So now you got two companies, you know, producing the thing. You've got the well, let's start with the company, whoever makes the stuff, right? You've got that company. These guys need to buy the parts and have them fabricated. So now you're one step removed from the first costs, you know what I mean? And then you get to the distributor, and then you get to the dealer, and everybody needs to make the profit all the way along, or else they can't run their business. So that's why you end up with, you know, if a pot costs 50 cents or if it costs $2, it makes a huge difference in the overall end price of a product, be it an amp or a pedal, or, you know, it can really affect, like, because you got to consider that times the number of them that you have, and then go, you know, to a factor of 3 or whatever. And that's what it'll end up costing. Like, you know, the retail price of the product will end up getting bumped up. So anyways, you know, you're seeing with these companies trying to do something different, I think, like with these switches and this situation and stuff like that. You know, or say that cornerstone pedal I did for the Jack White pedal with the octaves. It's just it really increases the cost when you're custom fabricating or having things, you know, made. And this is why you see $700 or $800 or $900 pedals. It's not a mystery, or they're not trying to gouge. It's like there's something going on there. Same thing with the cornerstone, where they're making those big telegraph like switches, and they even ship an entire book with the pedal that shows the fabrication process and how long it took them to come up with these things and stuff. Well, that's just going to add up into, you know, that's not going to be the cheapest thing in the world. So anyways, yeah. My niece says, this is why the toilet in the White House costs thousands of dollars. Is there only one? We can put all our money into this one, or we could have regular ones throughout the building. Let's go for one, but make it very special. I don't think that's what it is, but rather pay a bit more for quality, says Fareed. Yeah, it's even not even so much, I think, like definitely quality is important. And then also just the custom, you know, like doing things different is, that's why a Neve console was so expensive. They fabricated everything, you know, or SSL or maybe Neve's a better example, maybe, but you know, it was like when they were making everything, you know, and having custom, you know, knobs fabricated and certain, you know, custom stuff. It always costs so much money to do all that stuff, rather than just buying things off the shelf and then assembling them. The cheapest things you can do. Which it's not to say either that you know, that it's the best sound. It's like, sure, you can put together probably a great sounding pedal out of some of the cheapest, you know, whatever, pick the cheap parts or the expensive parts. Doesn't necessarily add up to something that sounds better, but you do get a custom fabricated thing that's, you know. You can also go down these rabbit holes where maybe you want to do things a certain way. Like, I want moving faders. And then it's like, oh, but it's going to cost. Like, no, we're going to do it. Like, you stick to your thing. And then, you know, anyways. Rodney says, thanks for sharing so many insights. Thanks, man. Why is everyone nuts for this reverb unit? Well, it just has a very cool kind of enveloping sound. I saw somebody on the gear page this week say that it sort of sounded like a part of the guitar tone, like it enveloped the guitar tone and sounded like not separate from the guitar tone, which many boxes, I guess, can have that. Like, you know, it's like things with overdrives or reverbs or whatever, where the sound sounds like you hear the clean sound and then you hear the reverb, or you hear the clean sound, then you hear the overdrive layered. And then there's certain pedals where it sounds more like integrated into the tone. And maybe it's that, because it is a very, like, I don't know, like I sort of said it in the video, it's going to make you play a certain way and make you write a certain way and make you come up with different music. Just because of the way that the thing sounds. So that's the way I felt about it. I really like it. And I really like the preamp too. You know, the preamp it's such a chameleon because it's got the fuzz circuits in it and stuff too. So it can sound like a great kind of like nice tube amp, you know, sort of more like a boutique indie combo kind of tube amp or whatever, but it does that sound really nicely. And then also a fuzz. Also, you can pretty much clean boost with it and do all this great stuff. And MIDI and all that stuff, you know. So it's just neat, you know. I like people that do things outside of the box. And, you know, there's so many samey pedals out there that when something comes out that's different, which these are different enough, I think, that they've really set themselves apart. And I like Chase Bliss pedals in the past, but this is so much more unique to me. And so I know they're expensive and stuff, but their pedals in the past have been cool, but honestly, sometimes I found like all the dip switches and stuff in the end a little confusing and all that, as far as assigning things to expression pedals, and they're intimidating to look at a little bit. And then you realize, oh, this is just to assign functions to expression pedals, all the switches in the end of, you know, you guys know what I'm talking about if you've seen their previous pedals. But that always, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. This having the ability to just, you know, map the function by moving it. Okay, here's the toe end of the pedal. Now I want it to go here at the you know, heel end, or vice versa, whatever. And you just map that by moving it, and it puts it in there, and then it's done. That's like, you don't have, it's like that kind of, well, we talked about it last week with the little bit with the quad cortex, I think, where I was talking about how I'm allergic to manuals, and you know, if something's easy to do, I just love that. If it's all about that UI or whatever, like the, as little learning curve as possible and just get to making music and make it really work well. Makes sense. Mike is up there in the top super duper chat. Hi, Mike. And he says, just saw the clip of you doing Smoke on the Water with Phil X and Kiefer at the GitCon. Yeah, that was fun. How long did you guys rehearse for that? Only that morning. We all learned the solo like on our own, and then we got together to do that like 15 minutes before. It's like, how do you play it? And then none of us are probably playing exactly the same, but it's that combined thing that made it fun. That was really fun. I miss that stuff, man. I was talking to Phil like last week or something. He texted me, which was nice to hear from him, and he said, I really miss seeing you at these things. Like, we're always busy. We weren't even living in the same city, but we would see each other, and we kind of became friends, really. I'd known him for years, but we became much more friendly and got to know each other in Germany or like in, wherever I'd see him at these things. And we got to actually hang out and spend time together, when he's on the road with his band or hanging with his family and stuff. When I was there, like we got to, it's actually like good hangs, for like a week. He's like, I miss that. And it's one of the things I miss too, is those events I got to go to, both the Toman event and GitCon a couple years in a row. They're really fun and really educational for me. Very, really creative. And in a time where the music business can seem daunting, and frustrating, and people are figuring out how to make a living playing music. Those things were like a gold mine of trying to figure out how to make a living, sort of in the because it's all these YouTube people moving forward. It was like a totally different community that I was really. It's like, wow, I'm really happy and lucky to be a part of this and enjoying meeting all these people and sharing ideas and stuff. So that was one of those things that Smoke on the Water video was just really fun, Plexico was up there in the top chat, and he says, happy Super Bowl Sunday. Please tell your thoughts on Kemper, Fractal, and Quad Cortex. It's the most common question. I thought about making a song for Sunday Live, like an intro, because everybody's got their video intros now and stuff, and that's easy to run. And I thought about making a video where I do a kind of like, like the theme song from Team America. America, fuck yeah. that whole song. I thought about making an intro. Do you think I should do it? And I thought about, writing lyrics and singing it, something about how, the Axe Effects, the Helix, and the Kemper, which one is best. They have a cage match to put it to the test. There, that's my lyric writing ability right there. But I'd make it funnier than that. I promise. Anyway, this is the stupid stuff I think about. I was literally thinking about this as I was putting up the thumbnail and getting this thing going today. I thought I got to come up with a song. It's like all the most cliche things. Not to say you're cliche, Duncan, but it is the most common question. Like, which modeler should I get? Which one's better? All right, so let's talk about it. And on that note, I hear there's this new Axe Effects firmware coming out too, and they've always got something new, right? So we got to give it a try and see what it sounds like. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, they're all great. Like I know that sucks, and it's not what you want to hear. The Helix, for example, I recently did a preset in the Helix, and so you can get that now in the latest preset firmware update or whatever, for Helix. It's part of that, and two sounds in it, and you can A/B them, and you can easily loop with it. So anybody that's got a Helix, maybe check it out. It's in there. It's like a preset that it's not something you have to download. It's in the, well, if you download the new factory presets or whatever, it's in there, 3.0 or whatever. I think that, are they already out with 3.1 now? They might be, but I haven't done an upgrade yet. But anyways, it's really fun because you can like A/B between two sounds and, set up a rhythm guitar loop and then hit a lead guitar sound really easily within the preset. So it's like a rhythm sound, a lead sound. I've got a second one that is really similar that I just basically tweaked that same preset, and it's more like a very clean kind of ambient sound and then a high gain sound for playing on top. So that is something that, like with the Helix, I was really enjoying. It's like I made this preset. I'm like, this is great. Like, sounds really good, and it's really fun to play. And it's like I can easily make a loop and practice on top of it. I don't know. That was fun. You know, and then we get into the quad. I'm just saying, like, that's one thing I really enjoyed on the Helix, and it was really easy to do. The quad cortex I'm using all the time right now. I tracked bass with it yesterday for, like, even in my pedal videos. I'm loving the bass sound. So it's like, even when I'm using amps, it's like I'll go to it for bass. I still love doing my UA. I think the UA bass amps, like the plug-in bass amps, are absolutely incredible. Like, especially the B15 is really great. The SVT, honestly, it's great. I struggle with it a little bit more. And in the quad cortex, I've been getting there's these great SVT captures that it came with, as well as V4. And it's like a no-brainer. I've got a couple presets. One's a little dirtier than another one. And I can get these bass sounds that are just, man, they sit in a track and they just sound killer, like instantly, you know. I made a bluesy guitar preset yesterday for, like, practicing. Like when I see, you know, these folks like Seth, what's his name? Seth Rosenblum, and, you know, certain players, on YouTube. I'll do a thing now. Do you guys know about, you probably know this already, but if you don't, you can, I'll give you a little tip here that's great for guitar and practicing and stuff like that. You can easily screen record on an iPhone. So if you don't know this, I know some of you probably do, but there's a lot of people that don't, that I've found. So if you're on this screen on your iPhone, you pull down, right? And then you get that set of stuff that you can do, right? Like whatever, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all that stuff. Well, in the bottom left corner there's a button, and if you push it, it'll start to screen record, and it'll record whatever. It's this one down here. It'll record whatever is going on. So if there's a guitar video on Instagram, you can simply start the screen recording, go to Instagram. If there's a post that you found that you liked, it'll start to play or whatever, and you can record it. And then once you're through the lick or whatever that you're interested in, you can stop the recording. And the audio's in there and everything too. It just looks like exactly what was playing on the screen. Now I will take that video and then I'll just send it over via AirDrop to my computer, and I'll load it into my phrase trainer, which is Transcribe. I mean, you could just play a QuickTime video or whatever as well, but I'll use Transcribe because then the audio's in Transcribe and I can slow it down and loop section, and I can learn. So I've been like learning some of these guys' licks that I'll, you know, on Instagram or whatever, and it's just those quick little things that I'm like, oh, that's cool, I want to save that for later. Make the screen recording. After you're done the screen recording, you stop it recording, it'll go into your photos folder. And I made a special folder for, you know, within my Photos app or whatever, of guitar videos or whatever, and I load them in there, and then I can simply send them over to my computer when I get here, pull them up in my phrase trainer, and learn some of these licks. It's really cool. I like it, you know. So that's a fun little practice thing I've been doing. People ask me about practice things sometimes, you know. That's one thing I've been doing that I find it's little digestible things that aren't too, you know, it's not a full YouTube video or something. It's a 30-second lick or whatever, and I just like this one phrase I can go. And so I've been working on that a little bit. What's his name? Jared James Nichols from Nashville. He's a great guitar player. I learned something from him yesterday where he was playing a slow blues in C. And the first couple licks are, well, it's full of great licks, but the first couple of licks are really nice. And he's doing these huge bends, you know, like up to major third, I think. And he's got really great control over his bend intervals. So up to the major third, and then drop down to the second, and then down to the root, and then back up to the major third and down to the root, and stuff like that, where you can hear all the pitches really well. And it sounds really great. I love that. So I was working on that. And a little bit of that Gilmore thing where he does those huge bends, you know. Yeah. Brian Gregory says, dude, I was just watching you in Liverpool. You were watching the Classic Rock Live Before Lockdown show. That's cool. Pretty good show, right? I mean, they did a professional filming, that's for sure. And the mix turned out great, I thought, and pretty high quality situations there. They spared no expense. It's like tons of cameras, and it was like as sophisticated as just about any video shoot I've ever done. Okay, I'm just going to go down to the bottom of the chat here and then page back a little bit. I'll try and go a little faster here with some of the questions. Hey, Pete, is a reverb unit too much or too bright for rock and blues? I love the real Fender tanks in my Twin, but every demo I run into on reverb units, it's sharp. Yeah, You can, there's always some sort of provision for tone control. Like in this one, there's the great big treble slider, and literally you can just turn that all the way down. It's pretty amazing how warm you can make this one. But there's a lot of that in different reverb units. I mean, a tone control or some sort of like dampening for spring reverbs that'll chill out the top end. So you just have to find one that you bond with, that where you can get the tone you want. But that's generally a feature on most reverbs, is the ability to darken them up. Certainly on delays it helps too. Gary says, Pete, do you and Dave Friedman wire your speaker cabs the old Marshall way, series parallel? Yeah, I think so. I think that's what I usually do. Or do you do parallel series? I don't think so. I think I just do the old way. You'd have to ask Dave, though, because actually he's helped me wire the last few cabs. And the Sir folks, I'm not sure how they do it. But Sir cabs are generally 8 ohms. They're pretty adamant about that they do, 212 is 8 ohms, 412s are 8 ohms, 112s are 8 ohms. It's a, nice work with multiple. Every amp's got an 8 ohm tap, it seems, except for old Fenders and stuff, but modern amps. And as far as the wiring goes, I think the way Dave does it is traditional sort of series parallel, I think. Not 100% sure, to be honest. Nez says, can you tell us about your new Sir Classic S in blue? Sure, up there in the super chat. Thanks for doing the super chat. Appreciate that. The guitar is actually not new, although it's got a new neck. So the guitar's got a bit of a history to it. I got this around 2010, at the same time that I got that green one back there. And it was when I got the gig with Don Henley, and I needed some strats for tones. And these were both guitars, this one and the green one, that they had that weren't taken by dealers or for various reasons and stuff. Actually, in this one was Peter Frampton's, I do believe. He had it for a little bit as a loaner, and then he gave it back, I think. And it had a neck on it that had a matching headstock with a white strip on the bottom. So it was a blue headstock with a white shelf on the bottom, like Sir does sometimes. And the neck was very thin. It was kind of a wide, thin neck. And so I never really liked the neck. It was a little too thin, even thinner than my Sir signature guitar, which isn't a thin neck, but it's a even C slim, which I find to just be a nice kind of modern C. But this other neck was quite thin. And so I always wanted something else on there. And I also didn't have a 3 single coil 50s setup, with like a, maple board. So I thought, why don't I see if I'll put a new neck on this guitar? So I got it out to them and they made this neck for it. And I love it. It's got that, it's kind of like, it's not as super figured as my red one. It's sort of like AA bird's eye or whatever, I guess. And it's roasted and it has the butcher block finish. And it is so smooth and just, I don't know, I love this guitar. A little bit bigger neck now than what I would normally probably go for. I don't know what they call this exactly, but it is so comfortable, honestly, that I play it for a few minutes and I'm just, it's just really, really, really nice. So, and I went for 21 fret because I just love the look. And it's got a heel end, obviously adjust truss rod in it like they used to do, which they don't do now. So this would be the dead giveaway that it's not a new Sir, is actually this, because all the headstock adjustment is kind of at the top now. But this is a custom neck they made for this guitar. So, and it's got the older, I think they're older locking tuners, or maybe they're newer ones. Yeah, these are the newer ones. So I guess they did replace the tuners when they replaced the neck. What else? I think the frets are probably 6105 style, whatever they call that. I'm not sure. And it's just got a traditional bridge on it that is, it's not quite decked. It's just got a little bit of float to it. So that's it. It's an older guitar that it has a new lease on life because of this new neck that I really, really like. So I'm using it a lot more now. And I think it looks better too with the maple board and I love the 50s kind of Lake Placid look, Really into it. I think it's time for the reading glasses because I don't know, fight it as long as I can and then I put them on. Stop fighting. Why are you fighting? Pete, what do you think is best for praise and worship guitar? A Thornbucker or Thornbucker Plus? Oh man, I have no idea. It'd be whatever I mean, stylistically, it'd be whatever you want to hear. The original the Thornbucker Plus I made to have an ever so slightly hotter version in an HSS style setup, in a a Strat style guitar essentially, because I felt like one of the things that I realized was that real low wind pickups in guitars with bolt-on necks and alder bodies, they maybe don't have the same amount of sustain in the guitar as a Gibson style guitar. It's like a Les Paul or something with a glue-in neck, has a little bit more built-in sustain, if that makes sense, because of the wood and all that stuff. So anytime you do the bolt-on neck, I find that the guitar it's not that it sounds anemic, but it just, if you expect a little bit more sustain out of, like a bit more drive out of the pickup, that's what I was going for. So I more compare it like in a Les Paul. If you want a great traditional PAF thing, you can go with the standard set and it's fine, or you can use a Plus, but the standard is generally, it's the Les Paul's got enough, whatever, enough of that sort of, sustain out of the build of the guitar or whatever. I find it's just in a bolt-on neck guitar, I wanted a bit more push from the pickup. So that was how that pickup was born. So no, and you might find that an original Thornbucker works perfect, especially depending on if you've got low wind singles in the guitar and you're used to that kind of lower wind thing. That might be fine. Like an original one might be. So I would more balance it. If you've got anything north of, like, if your singles are 6K or 6.5K or something like that, maybe you want to go for the Plus, because it'll balance nicely with the neck position. Both of them balance so great with singles, I find, both the Thornbuckers. Okay. Which do you like better, Neural Quad Cortex or Fractal FM3, says David. I like them both. I mean, I was able to get good sounds out of both of them. Better? I don't know. I mean, I can't really say, it's for instance, they don't have I don't think yet there's an editor for the Quad Cortex. There might be soon, I think, coming, but there's a great editor for the Fractal. So if you're used to the workflow, it's got that going for it. The Quad Cortex, of course, has the one big difference is going to be the capture process. Because if you want to do that, like if you've got amps, well, the Quad Cortex has that. So, Fractal's been around a long time and they're very established. And so they've got their scene kind of relatively figured out, I think, by now, and the workflow, and they've got their devotees and stuff like that, right? And it's like they make a good product, and it is what it is. This is more like a new thing on the scene that it's kind of like saying, do you like the Lexus or do you like the Tesla? And the Tesla people are like, ooh, that's new and different. Like I got a Tesla a while ago, and so it's like it's more like the Quad Cortex, I think, where it's like it's a young company that was growing fast, and very revolutionary, and also still figuring some things out, And so that's kind of the thing. But it is great. They're making a great thing, still figuring it out a little bit, but overall, you're like, this is pretty awesome. That's sort of my feeling on the Quad Cortex. So, yeah, it's a unique. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I can't deny, that I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it makes me play. I was gonna say I made a bluesy sound on it that was pretty cool. I used like what was the amp I used? I used one of internal amp model. I think it was the Super Reverb. I used a Super Reverb model, and then I paired it with a 63 Brown 210 cab, I think and it sounds really nice for, I put a spring reverb and a couple pedals that I can, like a clon that I can hit it with in front, and a Univibe, and there's a delay that I can use, but and that was for when I'm making those, when I steal these Instagram licks from these great guitar players. I thought I need a sound that sounds like that, where I can just practice really quickly. So I did that, and it's easy to get a good sound. It's fast and easy. 777 Daddy EP is up there in the super chat. Hi, Pete. Hope you're doing fine. I'd like to know, how do you start to learn a new song? How do you memorize the structure? I started learning Californication. It's hard as a beginner. Just go a little bit at a time and use a phrase trainer. So like I use transcribe software. I always recommend that because you can load a seventh string is the company, and it's called Transcribe. I think it's $49. You can load an MP3 or a wave in there, and then it shows up like a wave file. You can see the, you know, the wave form, and you can loop sections, right? And go just the intro, just the verse, you know, you can go in and draw in a loop, and then it'll keep that part looping. So you can just work on that one part, and then you can slow it down very easily. So all that stuff makes for easier learning than trying to use iTunes or Spotify or something to play a song to, you know, learn it. I don't like doing that. So that's, you know, and then just do the beginning, you know, just take it little phrases, like if it's 4 bars or whatever, get that down, practice it over and over and over, then move on to the next part, learn that. And then you're going to find that there's repetition in the song, you know, and it's like, oh, I don't have to learn every single, like, because there's a lot of repetition happening. So, you know, and it'll flow naturally like that, but just tackle little bits, whatever you can handle as a beginner. You know, if it's the first, I mean, I can remember playing the intro to Iron Man for, you know, like if I could just go, it was like, yes, you know, or, you know, Nirvana when you're teaching kids, you know, when they're young, or what was that? Unforgiven by Metallica, where it's all the open strings, doing, ging, 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 ging. You know, if you just get a kid doing that, that's exciting. Maybe just live on that for, you know, 3 or 4 days, you know, and then move on to the next. You know, it's a process. Simon is up there in the super chat and says, "Sup, man? Tell us more about the Comet Amp, Trainwreck style. Love your stuff. Thanks, man. I appreciate it." Okay, I'm gonna miss a super chat here, so I'm gonna answer this one really quick, and then I'll come back and tell you all about the Comet. It's T-Top in the super chat up there, and says, he says, "Is it normal for the little orange LED inside this?" Oh, I just lost it. Is it normal for the little orange LED inside the Reactive Load IR to flash slowly on and off the whole time? Yeah, I think so. I think that's just the IR board, and it's like a little thing with the, yeah, it's fine. You're good. I think mine does that too. The Comet Amp, that's a Concorde, and the Concorde was born out of the KF50, which was the Ken Fisher 50. So the deal was that Ken, I believe it was, I might be wrong, but I think it was originally something that Richie Sambora had asked Ken Fisher, the great original designer of, you know, the Trainwreck amps. He had, Richie had asked him to come up with an EL34, probably kind of like his take maybe on an old Marshall or something like that, more like 50 watt Class AB Marshall. And so he came up with the KF50, the Ken Fisher 50. And then he struck a deal somehow with Comet because he'd worked with them sometimes, and they were producing his designs later on in the latter part of his life. You know, Comet, like the Comet 60, I believe was a Ken design as well. And he trusted them to, you know, Comet's a small operation, it's 2 guys, and they're very bright and brilliant. You know, they make great high quality stuff, and so it seemed like a good fit. And so they made the 60, and then the KF50 became the Comet Concorde, and they would produce that design. And it was Ken's design. So that's the deal. So there's a lot of Trainwreck lineage in there for sure. And I remember the first time I tried a Concorde, which was 2006, I think, when it came out. I went to the amp shop in the Valley, and I plugged it in, and I hit one note, and it just started feeding back, and with harmonics on top. And it was one of those experiences I've had only a few times with amps where it was like, oh my God, that's a really great sound, you know, and like one note becomes 3 kind of thing. And I just loved it, and I had to have it. So that's the story. And the Concorde, great amp that started off as, you know, Ken Fisher design, and is still very true to what he came up with for the KF50. Robert Valdez is there in the super chat, and he says, "Have you used Amazing Slowdowner, and can you comment on the differences between that and Transcribe?" I haven't really. It's probably pretty close. There was another one, Riff Station, that was pretty good too. I just got, you know, it's like with anything, you get used to using something. And that was the thing with I got used to the UI or whatever of the, you know, Transcribe, but I'm sure Amazing Slowdowner works really good too. both good products, I would think. Peter Lasis is up there in the super chat, and he says, did you have Dave put a loop in your Gemino? I'm having a mod a 77 super lead for me. I'm considering whether to do the loop. Also, do you think a depth control is worth it? No, I don't. And I probably wouldn't do the loop. That's my honest feel on that, Peter. I think that, I use the Power Station a lot now, and it's got a loop in it. And I highly recommend anybody with a loud Marshall head or whatever get a Power Station from Fryette, because it's a great way to load down the amp, reamp it, add some control, and add a loop. And I would rather see you do that, for the money that it costs over doing a mod to an old Marshall. I think you're going to get more, you're going to get the ability to run the thing like a Plexi or like a whatever, and use it at any volume. And there's your loop. And yeah, it's adding one more box, but it's worth it. It's a tool that I use every day now, the Power Station in here for playing through a cab and not murdering the cab with volume with loud amps. And, so that's the way I would go. But no, the Germino doesn't have a loop. I sort of don't like loops I like it in my PT amps, but anything modern channel switching, I'm fine with them. But in an old 4-hole Marshall, even if it's a Jose mod kind of thing or whatever, I think part of the sound is no loop. It's kind of why Sir doesn't put them in the SL67 or 68. You can do it, but it's like those designs, I think, are better left kind of unmolested with, even if a tube in front is one thing, a master volume is one thing, because those are things that they did back in the day. But, there's something about them when you start adding you can do a loop. It's totally fine. And, and if you could switch it out of the circuit and stuff like that, it's fine. But I would just do the Power Station instead with an amp like that. That's just the way I feel. Okay. Let's see here. Steve says he's been using Transcribe for a couple of years. Honestly, the best thing to happen to my guitar practice. Yeah, I really like it too. It really helped me with learning songs for tours. And like I say, you can load all kinds of files into it. So you can even load an MP4 file in there. It won't play the video, but the audio will pop up. And then you can just, if you've made a video, like I was describing earlier, using a screen record on your phone or whatever, you can watch the video and line that up with the audio. And kind of, for those that didn't hear that, because I know they've got way more people on. I've got 510 people online now. When I was describing this, if you get anything out of today's show, you'll, if you don't know how to do this on an iPhone, I'm on the screen there where you've got all your controls for volume and brightness and all that. That little button down there in the corner, this one right here, that's to start screen record. And you can screen record anything and make a video out of whatever's playing on the screen. So for instance, if somebody plays a cool lick on Instagram and I'd like to learn that lick later, just hit the screen record. It'll start recording, go into Instagram, find the video, let it play from the beginning. Once the thing's done, you stop recording by hitting the top left corner, and then it'll put a little video of that into your iPhoto, on your phone. And then you can take that video. I'll send the video over to my computer via AirDrop, and then I can load that into Transcribe, and I can slow it down and loop sections and learn these people's licks that I hear every day on social media. So that's one thing that I do to, keep the creative juices alive, get new inspiration. Wilfredo says, Mr. Thorn, is there a distortion pedal that would work well with the Fender Twin Reverb? Probably quite a few, to be honest. I mean, something like a Sir Riot will work great with the Twin. There's so many, honestly. A small box, or probably the Plexitone. I'm just realizing I don't really have a Twin has a bright switch, right? So you can turn off, doesn't it? I think Twins have bright switches, kind of like a Super, right? I think. Just can't remember right now. The Twin is one amp that I've never actually messed with that much, to be honest. I've played with them a little bit, but it's not an amp like that I've owned or, so it's one of those Fenders. I've used Deluxes way more, and Princetons and even Supers quite a bit more. Twin, Like never, I don't think, did I ever have one show up at Backline and used it or anything like that. But I think they're pretty friendly with pedals, I think. And I think they have a bright switch. So if you've got a pedal that's, you know, a bright Marshall-y thing, it won't sound like a swarm of bees if you turn off that switch. I could be wrong. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong. Educate me. Any more Quad Cortex videos coming, says Aaron. You know, I thought about making some. I thought one thing that might be interesting that I haven't seen anybody do is 4-cable with an amp. Could be cool. Use it with the PT15 and come up with some tones and use it, you know, so primarily you're hearing the effects. And then I thought maybe one of the things I could do if I do use it like that is also switch a different amp sound, like an AC30 or something in, you know, and have that as, see how well that works coming through the power section of the PT15. But I thought it might make for an interesting video. I've got this Sir Midi box that I still have to do a video for that I've promised them that to show, so I could use this because the Quad Cortex doesn't actually have channel switching. I don't think it doesn't, right? It doesn't have. It's one of the things that it does not have is any sort of yeah. There's not like a relay switching in it like some of these other units. So you'd have to use MIDI to do the switching, which is fine. Or add a, you know, relay box outside of the unit, but I digress. Anyway, so let me know if you think that's a good idea, like 4-cable, or if there's anything else you'd like. Wick, what do you think? What would you like to see out of a Quad Cortex video? That's another one. There's another question from Harry in the super chat. Do you have any opinion on the Quad Cortex versus the Axe Effects? Sorry, bud. I don't mean to laugh at you. I'm not laughing at you. It's just that we already talked about it. It's one of the things that we talked about at the beginning. I was just saying it's the most common question these days is Axe Effects versus Kemper versus Quad Cortex. I don't have a great, you know, we already, I don't want to rehash it too much because we already talked about it, but you are there in the super chat. So I'll encapsulate like by saying basically, you know, look at some of the features. Like I would say, like if profiling amps or capturing as they call it is important to you, or pedals, that unit will do it. The Axe Effects won't, but the Axe Effects has a legion of followers and they've been around a long time. And if you like their editor and you like their workflow, I mean, it's got great sounds. There's no doubt about it. You know, it's portable. You know, I mean, I guess the Quad Cortex is around the same size as an FM3. You know, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I would say the touchscreen is the one thing the Quad Cortex has going for it. That's really cool. Works great. The drag and drop kind of thing, you know, we're all used to using. It's things like that I like because it's like, I actually don't, I feel like I don't need to use an editor. That's one thing I do like about Quad Cortex. Whereas with the Axe Effects, it's awesome, but I still feel like I want to use the editor on the FM3, plug it into the computer and stuff. It's not really I don't think that's a controversial statement that's the easiest way to program that unit, you know, as well as the Helix. It's the easiest way to program, you know, the Quad Cortex. I don't really feel the need to do that. I don't feel the need to plug it in to an editor. So that's nice. Hopefully that's some things that, you know, you can get great tones out of both of them for that style of modeling device. You know, you're going to be able to get comparable sounds. And I do like on the Quad Cortex as well, the microphone stuff where you can move the mics around the speakers, you know, virtual kind of, you know, move it with your finger. It's very easy and just kind of works like you would think it would, and that's nice. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. If I can offer any more specific questions, let me know. Teleman is up there in the super chat. He's just saying, hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I do. Stealth Barrett says he has Riff Station and it's really great. Whittly Houston says Riff Station seemed good and had some nice functionality. Not quite up there with Transcribe though. Yeah, I tried it. I for some reason I'd already tried Transcribe, and so I just kind of stuck with it. But I thought Riff Station was pretty cool. Keith says he uses Riff Station, and Stealth Parrot says Riff Station is no longer available. That's interesting. Well, you can still get Transcribe, I think, and there's the amazing slowdowner as well. And then there's also like you know, like doesn't Amplitude have a phrase trainer in it? I think so, right? I was just talking about that because I did a video of it, so I'm pretty sure it does. I know that also forever ago and still currently Guitar Rig has a phrase trainer in it. But I like Transcribe. That's my favorite. You know, all these other ones will work great too. It's just the one I've used. They're not paying me. I bought it. Wilfredo says, oh, that was the question about the twin. Okay, I'm going to move down a little bit in the chat. Let's see. Can you play for us, says Max. As I was saying in my previous shows, I don't really play that much in this show. The questions come fast, as you can see. And this is more about that. And also, as I stated, like, you know, in previous shows, I feel like when I come in here on Sunday morning, I've just barely had my coffee. And I feel like when I sit down with the guitar that I need to you know, I really need to warm up. And I do this for like, you know, 20 minutes. Because I can feel right now the stiffness and the kind of, consider the age here, you know, and if I play for 20 minutes, it's like, oh, there it is. Now but right now my hand, like I don't come in here in any state to play, you know, and it's never really what this show, now 156 episodes in, has been about. This is more about talking about rigs and stuff like that. It's never me like demonstrating licks and stuff. It just never turned out that way. I never did it that way. And I don't, you know, there's no tone dialed up or a way to do that and stuff. It's just the way the show evolved. It was more interviews and answering questions about rigs and stuff like that. And a little, you know, career stuff and all that. So, which I'm fine with. I mean, I think it's what people expect when they come here. It's kind of the way it's evolved. Maybe sometime I'll change that and do more playing. Peter Lesa says, in a Sir Modern alder body, maple neck, and ebony board, okay, which humbucker would you go for early EVH tones? I have an SH Plus, and I don't think it's the right fit. When you see, we're going to do a whole video on this, like the early EVH pickup thing. And you're asking, when is the EVH pickup shootout? Coming soon. I'm waiting for a guitar still. Which is in process, but I've got so many pickups. I have about 15 pickups now, I think. The reality is, I think if you want the ticket to Van Halen 1 tone, at least from a guitar pickup perspective, it's going to be something super distortion-ish. It's just easier for that sound. If you want overall Van Halen, that'll do that, but not quite the same as Van Halen 1, but will definitely Van Halen 2 and onwards. I'm giving away the whole thing in the video, I think, here, but I'm going to demonstrate it in the video. I think that 9K, you know, PAFE thing is more in order. So, you know, and I think that that's just, you know, I think that he changed his thing on Van Halen 2 enough that the major difference in the tone, that's demonstrated by the first video we did, I think, pretty well. But the major difference in tone really is not having the JBL speakers in the cabinet anymore and going from the distortion, hotter pickup thing to Alnico. I can't prove that, you know, I have no proof or anything of what pickup was in the white and black guitar on Van Halen 1, but there's enough photographic kind of evidence and anecdotal stuff that I think, you know, he was using those Mighty Mite hot pickups, at least in 77. And so I think that it's just the sound that I hear. And when you hear it, there's another fellow from Three Monkeys Amps that's got a pickup, Eddie Van Halen pickup video out that's pretty good. And he sort of shows that, and you can hear it in that video too, where it's just like, yeah, that's that big fat distorted Van Halen 1 sound when he uses the super distortion style pickups. And when he goes to the more the Alnico stuff, it's a different sound and sounds more like the later, you know, well, Van Halen 2 onwards, I think. Supposedly in the black and white guitar, he had, I think it was a super distortion, but he replaced the magnet. Well, that's interesting. You know, I mean, and I, you know, I don't, it gets fuzzy, like on Van Halen 2, what guitar he actually played. Cause I think you know, did he use the shark? Like, what was he playing on all the different, you know, because a lot of people talk about Van Halen 1 more. It's more defined. Anything without a tremolo arm is the Ibanez, the Destroyer. But on Van Halen 2, like, did he use the Frankie a lot, or was that yellow and black guitar with the pickup in it that supposedly was a Duncan, or sorry, a DiMarzio Super Distortion that he switched the magnet out with some sort of PAF magnet or something, you know? So it gets a little fuzzy, but by then, I believe for sure in the Frankie, by then I think was a Seymour Duncan pickup that was probably the EVH, you know, that they make that pickup, the Duncan EVH, that spec, 9K, probably Alnico 2, you know, and that's definitely what Van Halen 2 sounds like to me, is more that Alnico raw plexi, little lower gain, little less distortion sound, a little warmer. Greenbacks, no JBLs. So the pickup video will be coming as soon as I can get my hands on a guitar to do it with. And then we'll get into it. Rich Monks is up there in the super chat. He says, all-time ultimate EVH tone for me. Hear about it later. That's great. Sounds like he kept the slow flanger on throughout both the clean intro and all the heavy toned rhythm. Some of the heavy toned rhythm, I think, yeah, I have to go back and listen to the track. But the flanger sound, I'll tell you what, in the first pedal board video I made in 2011, when I got a pedal board and I made a video with like all the pedals on my pedal board or whatever, I play Hear About It Later for the portion where I'm talking about the EVH flanger. Go listen to it and tell me it doesn't sound perfect. It sounds exactly like the album to me. And that's just the standard EVH flanger, you know, the one they make with the white and black stripes on it and with the button in, the EVH setting. And some people say like, oh, it doesn't sound as good as the old ones or whatever. And I'm like, bullshit. Go listen to it in my video. It sounds exactly like Hear About It Later. The sweep and the flanger sound. Tell me I'm wrong. It's perfect. And not only that, it's perfect for Unchained and everything. He only used that setting, you know, just like the Echoplex. He used one setting, you know, generally. I mean, it was like, you know, that one kind of whatever it is slap that you hear on Ain't Talking About Love and all that. And also on Fire, you know, it's the same setting, you know. So he found his settings, and he got a little bit like Tom Morello, I guess. Find your settings and use them, make a bunch of songs with them. VPass. Oh, you were asking me about my favorite. My favorite. God, dude, I can't really pick. Van Halen 2 is really, see, to me, if I had to have an overall, like in a guitar, you know, a pickup, I love that early Van Halen 1 sound is pretty great, you know, but if I had to have an overall thing, I would probably go for the more Van Halen 2. It's songs to me like, I mean, even like DOA is so great, like that sound, or Light Up the Sky, or and then, you know, I love the later sounds too. I thought, to be honest, I think like Women and Children First sounds a little rushed to me. The production, some great stuff. I mean, it's epic, you know, but that whole album overall sounds a little more, it's a little more in the Diver Down camp to me, where there's these great moments, and then it sounds more like we got to get a record done. We got to get out on the road. We got to, you know, that's my honest feeling about that record, even though I love it still, you know. And the tones too. It's sort of like Van Halen 1, but it's a little reverby, like little, it's just not quite as, you know. So for me, it's a lot of those Van Halen 2 sounds, and then yeah, maybe Fair Warning gets into some creative stuff going on there, and I mean, Mean Street, the best sounding G chord, and it's, I guess, an F sharp or G flat because it's tuned down a half step. But the intro of Mean Street, where when he hits that chord right there, I've listened to that over and over and over again as the quintessential Dirty Marshall on 10 sound, and it's so awesome to me. So I just love it. That's a favorite. VPass says, any advice on choosing a MIDI switcher? My goal is to hit one switch and change presets on multiple pedals while also having control in terms of changing individual presets on my Eventide H9, Big Sky, and Timeline. Well, there's a great one. I'm a Musicom guy, so I use that. It's terrific. But I started using them many years ago, and I got used to the kind of the menus and the workflow of the way that the nice fellow that makes those designed his stuff. So I just got used to it, and that's that, you know. But I really like RJM too. Their switcher's really wonderful. with the big screen and the ability to do series parallel loops and switch them and all that stuff. And the Boss is no slouch, you know, and it's great and reliable, and, you know, it's Boss. So it's like they're easy to find. I like all that. So I would look at Boss, RJM, and Musicom and see what you think. Thank you for doing the super chat as well. I do appreciate it, my friend. Simon in the top chat says that he met or he just discovered Mr. Grissom recently and blown away by the tones. He's got great tones. Craving a DG30 amp. Have you ever tried it? I haven't, but David's great. And I totally agree. He's awesome. I love the video he made. It's not Starlix, maybe REH, but his instructional video is killer. And the sound he gets on it's great. But whether he's playing a 50-watt Marshall or whatever he's using, he's always got great tones. It's more in just the way he dials in the amp. And I'm sure I haven't checked that out, but I bet it's great, you know, because it's like he's not gonna, you know, he's just got great, he's got impeccable taste when it comes to both playing a guitar tone. He's a very nice guy too. Met him a couple times, so I really like him. Totally my deal, that his style. Love, you know, his combination of chops and phrasing, and, you know, so great. Joey is there in the super chat too. He says, "Evening, Pete. I'm very tempted by the Silver Sky, but I'm in lockdown in the UK. Would I be mad for ordering online, having never played one?" I don't think so. I think they're really nice guitars, and PRS is a good guitar company. They're probably going to be really consistent. And, you know, if you order from somebody like Thomann or something, I'm sure they've got a great return policy if you really don't bond with it, right? I would think they do. Just know that it's quite radiused, so it's a fairly vintage feeling guitar, but that's not a bad thing. It's like a very nice feeling guitar. I like them. I think it's a cool guitar, you know. I like John too, so I think you know, like I would, if you don't mind the, you know, the feel, you've played probably old Strats or that style of neck, you know, vintage true sort of you know, 50s or 60s guitars and the radius and all that. If you dig that, then go for it. I really liked the pickups. I liked the voicing of them, and the one thing that I remember that my takeaway from when I played one at GitCon for a few minutes was that it was fun sounding. Like the amount of quack in the 2 and 4 positions is really, like, it's got a great, you know, I think John kind of lives a lot in the, you know, neck and middle position. And it's got a, you know, it sounds like it's no screwing around there. It's a really great sound. So I talked to John about that guitar when it first came out, and we had a little text exchanged about it because we talk sometimes about gear, and he said nothing on this guitar was I remember him saying, like, we really like worked hard, like, for a long time. And he's a meticulous guy, you know, and I could see that. I'm sure, like, that he's like, nothing was like an afterthought, or it was like every little thing we really thought about, you know. And then a lot of people kind of, I think he probably said that in interviews and stuff, and some people kind of roasted him online saying, like, you know, that it was basically a Strat, you know. But it's not really. It's like when you look at the pick guard and the, you know, the way it works with the headstock and the overall, you know, there's a lot of thought put into it's a different thing, you know, the subtle things. It's like little things on Sirs too, like the heel and the, you know, the contours and everything's a little, like, tweaked to be, you know, optimized or whatever, in the opinion of, you know, in the style of one company. Have you ever tried out an original Block 5150? I'll start putting some of these up. I had one. It was one of my first really good amps. I got one so early on that it still had US tubes in it when they used to ship them with Philips 6L6s. So mine had original tubes. And I remember one time I took out a screen resistor and had to get the amp, like the tubes, you know, I lost a tube and it took out a part on the board, and the guy had to get in it, and then I had to get new tubes. So it was kind of sad when it was like, oh yeah, you can't get these tubes anymore. I remember, and I had to get a set of, like, whatever Chinese made 606 or something, and the amp was making less power then. I remember that. Like, it was like, it would put out like 100, well, I guess they were billed as 120 watts or whatever, but it was making, like, you know, 114 or whatever at full power with the new tubes or whatever. I was like, oh, the tubes aren't as good. Still, it's most of the mojo in that amp was in the preamp, but anyway, I had one and I used it for a number of years, and I used to use it in a cover band and my original band, but I used it in a cover band for a long time. And I used the green channel a lot, like the cleaner channel. And it got I mean, to me, it sounded good at the time for a good sort of working man's basic Marshall-y crunch. you know, pretty cool. It was a decent amp. Stu says, currently using Tone King Iron Man Mini with my deluxe reverb and Blues Junior. But thinking of getting the aux box to run with my Apollo Twin. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, if you want to get into recording or playing with some room sounds, that's the one thing in an aux that's really fun is the room mics. I mean, there's many things that are cool about it, but the room mics are really fun. The delay is really nice. Having a little compression in there is really nice. 1176 style. The plate reverb is really nice. You know, you can get some nice, cool sounds. I use the aux a lot on Pete Thorn too, for doing some of the sort of more atmospheric guitar parts and things with effects. I was using the aux and I would just print things. I would try some of their effects presets and go, wow, that's lovely, and come up with a part or whatever. And then I would just throw it down with all the effects and everything coming right out of the aux. So I really liked it. I mean, it's going to open up possibilities for you that you don't have using just an attenuator. So it's fun. You know, it's a good device, I think. And some of the speaker cab sounds in it I find exceptional. Like I really like the 212 Voxy one. It just records. If you've got a Vox style amp, you've got Blues Junior and a deluxe reverb, but they'll sound good through it too. There's a preset that is called Honkin' Silvers. That's a 212 Alnico style preset. You know, Alnico cab style preset that just. I remember pulling that up and going, that sounds great. And then I just tweak it a little bit to taste or whatever. But that to me is a go-to still. That and the 410 cabinet for cleaner sounds, you know, it's a little brighter, but it's got a nice bottom. It's kind of a full range sound, really. And that sounds really good to me. It's a Bassman style 410, I think. Am I the only one that doesn't prefer a treble bleed circuit on a guitar's volume knob? No, I don't think so, Stephen. I think that there's quite a few players out there that like the, you know, slight darker effect they get when they roll down. And if you use 50s wiring on Les Pauls, I find that you don't really need the treble bleed. I mean, I don't have it on my Yaren. I have it on a number of guitars, and I don't have it on others. So, you know, I think it's normal on a vintage Gibson setup, at least, to not really have it. I used to do it like on the neck pickup on a Les Paul, but not on the bridge. That was one thing that I had a little, you know, just put the cap and resistor on the volume knob for the neck pickup only. And I thought that was kind of cool because it was like I could roll the guitar volume down to like 2 on the neck pickup and go from a fairly distorted sound to a almost completely clean sound that had high end. Switching to the neck pickup. So there's that kind of hybrid thing you can do too, you know, but whatever works, you know. Somebody's up there in the top chat. I'm just going to grab this one really quick here. Loving Sunday Live. Thanks, Pierre. Do you use buffer in and out of your board? I do, actually. If yes, which one do you use? Well, on my pedal board, I've got the Friedman buffer bay. So it has a buffer in it. So I'll use that on the input. And then it's a little bit redundant because I have my Musicom Lab switcher and it's got buffers in it. But the reality is I'm going into my pedal board on the side on the patch bay, and then I'm running through a few things. I'm running through a Dunlop Wah, a Freak Out, which is probably buffered anyway, because I don't know if it's true bypass, because it might be, but and a Unit 67. So I'm running through a few pedals. So I just thought, well, I'll just turn on the buffer bay, and then I'm buffered going in. And, you know, going through a few things before it hits the Musicom Lab switcher. On the way out, I believe I've got the Musicom Lab buffer on. I can't remember exactly the way I've got it set up now, but I'm buffered at the end, I think, using the Musicom. I think I think I've got 2 buffers, like one at the beginning and one at the end, you know, just to make sure everything's cool. Because there's certain pedals I would find if I don't have a buffer at the end that that if you turn it on, sometimes it would be weird. I can't remember right now, but it's like certain things like phase 90s have like, I think I could be full of crap right now, but have like a high impedance, a relatively high impedance output. And then that can be weird if you're just going out of there, but it's bypassed and blah, blah, blah. So anyways, I thought, I don't want to think about it that much. So I'll have a buffer at the beginning, a buffer at the end. And I like the buffer that's in Dave's buffer bay quite a bit. I think I just missed a super chat. and I'm going to try and find it. Tone Sheriff, I see you've got one there as well, and I'm going to come back to you. Stan Muso says that he wants to gig his restored 74 Super Bass 100. Cool. Fat cleans for drive pedals. What portable 112 or maybe 212 would you suggest? Probably, if it's 100 watt, I would probably go with maybe a Redback Celestion. Fat cleans. That or maybe the Creamback Alnico Cream. Gets confusing. Alnico Cream or a Redback, or maybe both those. That might be nice in the 212. Just spitballing, but I've never tried it. But both those are nice speakers. The Redback is 150 watts ceramic magnet speaker that it's a little bit on the warmer. Anytime you get those speakers up there in the 150 watt, it's not going to be quite like a Greenback, but it sort of has a Greenback character. And then the Alnico Cream has beautiful cleans. It's a really, just overall, a really, really nice sounding speaker, and it'll handle 100 watts. So I would probably try, that might be a really nice cabinet, actually, a blend of those, although I haven't looked at the efficiency to see how close they are. As long as they're within 2 dB of one another on the efficiency rating, if one's 97 and one's 99 or one's 98, one's 100 or whatever, you should be fine. I don't know what they are. You'd have to go look. But those are the two speakers I would look at for probably fat cleans with drive pedals, with that particular amp. And probably that running the tone controls and jumpering can be a good way to go if you want to get fat cleans with pedals. You can also do what Paul Gilbert does and just use the normal input, only the volume 2, but I find that kind of dark and it's not really, loses what I like about a Marshall. So I find I still like to use the bright input and jumper it and have them both going, even out the volume. So, you can run it on 2 or 3 on each volume for cleans. And if you've got 100 PF bright cap in there, maybe no bright cap, but if you've got 100 PF, which is a more JTM 45 style bright cap, it'll work better with pedals. It won't be so take your head off, as some of the bright caps in Marshalls could be. So just be aware of, if it sounds awfully bright, you can tweak the bright cap value and get to something where it'll work better with pedals. That's something you can work on with a tech to find what you like. Anything from no bright cap to 100 is probably good with pedals at low volumes for cleans, because they can get, if it's got a really high value bright cap or whatever, it can be very ice picky at the lower volumes on the treble channel. What portable 112 or 212 would I suggest? I mean, I love my PT cabs. If I was saying fat cleans, I might, if you could get one unloaded, like my 212 for the PT 100 would go great, I would say. It's got H75s in it, which are nice speakers, but fat, I think a little bit more like full mids, you might want the Alnico Cream or whatever than the H75 Creamback. That's a lot of information. I don't know, it gives you something to go with, but I hope I'm helpful. Okay. I'm going to move to, where was it? There it is. This other fellow, Tone Sheriff in the super chat. From the professional touring musician, can you go over stereo versus mono for live? Because of wet, dry, or dual amp setups, there's a lot of confusion out there. Sure. So the number one thing I would consider is the type of band you're in and how many players there are. I think that if there's a lot of people in the band, the wet, dry thing is unnecessary. You're almost better mono. So I learned that playing with Don Henley when I had a wet, dry rig. Even with Chris, I had a wet, dry rig for a while. And to be honest, it was overkill. Because where does the guy put you in the stereo spectrum when you got all these other things going on? If you've got another guitar player, they generally want to pan you out like kind of 10 and 2. And then sometimes if you play a solo, they'll manually pan you in for the solo and then pan you back out again, talking at the front of house. If you're Van Halen or something like that, now you are talking like as far as a wet, dry, wet rig, because your guitar is the, besides the lead vocal, you are the show. And it makes perfect sense for wet dry to have a great big stereo guitar sound, you know, but a great big stereo guitar sound isn't really the thing if you're in a band with more than one guitar player or keyboards. And, you know, now you got to fit in your slot a little more. And I think mono works better for that. So it depends on the band you're in, the style of music. I still use a stereo rig to this day, but wet, dry, wet with 3 cabinets and 3 microphones was just too much. So now I use 2 amps if I can. You know, I'll use 2 amps and 2 cabinets, and that's almost as much for fun for me and in-ears if I'm using in-ears on a gig more than anything else. You know, I like to, I've even used one cabinet that's one of those split Marshall style with the 2 inputs, you know. Even that is, if they mic it up or whatever, you're going to get a little bit of fun in your in-ears as far as like delays. You can do ping pong, and that's more fun to listen to than that mono pinpointed guitar sound. So in the front of house, even if they're panning me kind of, you know, I think generally what they'll do probably at front of house is if you've got one guitar player on the other side of the stage, and, you know, generally speaking, every guitar player I've ever played with is always just running a simpler rig than me and usually mono. They'll pan them one way and then they'll pan me the other way, and maybe I'll get like a split like this, you know, with the panning goes on a stereo channel, something like that. But it's more about, for me, the fun in the in-ears of having so that's why many times I'll do the stereo just for myself, you know, because it's like I don't like the in-ear thing. It's just nice having that, you know, when you hit a reverb or a Leslie or something, if it's got that spread. So that's pretty much it for me. I mean, I would say, like, if you consider the type of band you're in, you know, if I was touring with Don again now, I would go mono. It just makes more sense. It's like, just do mono 1 amp. And, you know, just enjoy the sound of that, because you're slotting into a great big band with with lots of players in it. And it's not about you being in stereo. You know, if you're playing in more band where it's just guitar, bass, drums, and it's, you know, you're the next Van Halen or something, well, yeah, go wet, dry, wet. And then anywhere in between, you know, if you want a simpler rig and you want to go stereo, like people do with a Helix or an Axe Effects, you know, a lot of the sort of, essentially that's like running an amp and then splitting in stereo coming out of left and right output. And now the front of house can do whatever they want with that, but you've got that kind of stereo delays and rotary, and you can do fun stuff with that. So the equivalent of using amps with that would be 2 amps and running a stereo effect in the effect loop and splitting out to 2. So you've got your one head, right? And you take the send out of the effect loop of your main tone head or whatever, say my PT15, right? Come out of the effects send, go into your stereo effect, split to stereo. Now out of the returns of the last effect device, you're going to take one side and it's going to go back into the return of that main amp, and also the return of a second amp. So that second amp, you're only using the power amp in. And the nice thing about that setup too is that you've always got a backup there. You've always got a second amp, so that if your first amp goes down, or even if the second amp goes down, that you're only using as the return, you've still got sound. You've still got a head you can use, you know? So I find it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. You get a stereo thing going using that simple sort of traditional stereo rig, and you've also got a backup amp there that you can go to quickly if all hell breaks loose and your first amp dies. You can just plug into the second amp and you've got another amp working. So that's what I like these days. It's just a simple stereo. Now, there's players out there, one of them, Scott Henderson, for example, that he doesn't like having delays and reverb or anything like that in his main guitar sound, in his cabinets. He does wet dry rig. He does mono wet dry. So that's another thing to consider, where he's got an amp head cabinet. He runs the Sir line out box on the output of his, I got one here. I have one here I can show you. Runs the line out box on the output of his, I want to show this to you if I've got it around. I know I've got one here somewhere. It basically just takes a line level tap off the output. There it is. This is a simple little box here. Okay, so your speaker from your head goes in here. This goes out, and then this other one goes out to the cabinet. Just passes the signal through. But it takes a tap off that signal at line level. Here's the output. Now you run this out to your effects, right? You can drive your effects with this level knob. You've got ground lift switches, phase reverse switch here. It's very versatile. It's cool. So this drives your effects. You run your effects 100% wet, delay, reverb, whatever, right? And then you take the output of your effects, you run that the way Scott does it is into a little amp, into a uses a probably different amps, but when he came over here to show me how he did it, he had a Fender hot rod, and he would run the effects right into the front end, which I was like, really? Like right into the preamp? And then he just turns up the clean, you know, he's only used obviously the clean channel and just brings that up a little bit. And now he can EQ his effects using the preamp. It sounded great. It was like a really nice mono wet dry way to do things. So that's the other way to do it. And he does that because he doesn't like the way that the delay and the reverb affect his core guitar sound, like maybe the, you know, attack or feedback characteristics or things like that get affected by having delay. And I think that that's a thing, but that's Scott, and he's using the guitar like Jeff Beck would use a guitar, right? If you're in a band and you're playing more atmospheric parts or just kind of in a pop band or whatever, you're playing parts, I don't think it's as big of a deal, you know? If the guitar is the star of the show and you're relying on that, you know, using the guitar as the lead singer, which is what Scott Henderson does, you know, maybe then, or Mike Landau, you know, now the guitar is the dominant voice, right? If you're just in a band and you're part of the band, I don't think it's that big of a deal having the delay and the reverb in the, which is, and that's kind of the world that I live in, you know? So, okay. I hope that's helpful. Ways that I think about these things. Kevin Lee says there's also, of course, just running pedals in front. You can do that too, and use a combo or whatever, and you know, use some overdrive and reverb and delay into the amp and the pedal. Simple rig like that. Oh, I want to talk about the girl Phoebe. Is that how you say that name? She was on Saturday Night Live last night. Did anybody see that where she smashed her Dan Electro at the end? I really enjoyed her band. It was great seeing some, you know, they're like young players or whatever, and they're just playing Fender combo amps. There's no keys. It was like 3 guitar players, I think, or 2 or 3. She was playing guitar, and then there was 2 other guitar players, bass and drums. And at the end, she smashed her Dan Electro. It was cool. Great songs. And she was, it was very 90s sounding to me. And it was like, this is cool. I like this, whatever I'm seeing right now. I enjoyed it. I thought she sang great. So it wasn't a perfect performance. It was like there was a little out of tune stuff going on. It was like, great. Sounds like music. Very cool. Kevin Lee is in the super chat there, and I'm sorry I'm taking forever to get to him. For a stereo setup, would you go for 2 amps with different tonal qualities, like Fender versus Vox or Marshall, or do you use 2 at the same time? I've done both. Generally speaking, it's 2 of the same. I'll do the 2 amps that are the same and then use the effect return like I was just describing of the second amp to run a stereo 2 amp rig. But it can sound really great to run 2 amps in stereo, particularly when I think of the setup that you're talking about is like Fender and Vox, like more like a clean sound. Not if I'm going stereo and I want heavy, you know, if it's like a distorted thing or whatever, it's generally 2 high gain amps, PT100s, you know, something like that in stereo, and I'm doing that. If I'm doing more like a, you know, a part in the studio, then I want to split using a Leslie or something like that, or like a Leslie pedal, you know, like some sort of rotary pedal. I used to do that with Linda Perry. I used to run a deluxe reverb and an AC30 that were both vintage 60s, and it was a great sound. I mean, for anything other than hard rock, it was like, this is the setup. Like, use a deluxe reverb and a copper top AC30, and you could split with a stereo pedal of some sort if you want to, or use a mono and even just blend them. But yeah, it was that's a great way to get a sophisticated was the word that came to mind, but I don't know if it's just, you know, you're covering a lot of sonic bass there, using a lot of sonic basses, using 2 different great combo amps, and then splitting with something like a chorus pedal or now in the I did a TC Electronic video a while ago where I blended a Marshall and an AC30. That sounded pretty cool. I ended up running the AC30 a little too dirty, I think, in that video, but you can find that on YouTube. It's not, is it stereo? I might have used a TC pedal to do the split, I think, and I may have had some effect on. I can't remember, but watch the video and see what you think. I know they're panned out in the video. You can hear what I was going for anyway. I think the AC30 was driving a little hard, but that's a great sound, like running a Marshall and an AC. That's the rig that sort of what Dean DeLeo would do, I think, is run AC30s and a Demeter, but it was like a little bit more like a head and a combo together, you know, that kind of thing. That's a cool sound too. I like blending amps. Where's the Ombre, says JP. I was just playing through my Ombre. It's sitting right there. I was playing through it the other day. Well, something happened where my computer just decided to randomly do a software update while I was like in the middle of doing a session. It was like 31 minutes remaining. I'm like, well, how the hell did this even happen? My computer started shutting down and it just went into software update mode. It's like, thanks a lot. I'm busy. But what did I do in that moment? I thought, you know what the perfect thing to do is right now? Because I was kind of frustrated, gear and crap, computers, that happening. Let's plug into the Ombre with no effects. And I just waited for it and I just played kind of loud in here with the Ombre for a while. It's such a great sounding amp. Braxall says, if I track a guitar using 2 different amps and using the aux and the 2 notes at the same time, will there be a sync issue due to the processing? Maybe is the answer. Probably. I doubt that the latency is exactly the same because there's going to be latency with the digital devices and stuff like that. And it's probably, one's probably like 1.9 milliseconds. The other's probably 2.3 or something. I don't know. So you might get a small problem. Not that it can't be rectified. But generally I try and avoid those things by doing, you know, if I want to do 2 amps and I want to line out them into the computer, I'll generally try and do the IRs or speaker sim in the DAW. And that's how you avoid that, you know, just get the line outs, and because you can turn off the processing in the aux and in the 2 notes and just get like, I think, right. And just get like a straight, like on the reactive load, the Sur reactive load, it's just got the unfiltered out, and that's just a straight analog, you know, right out of the load. So that's what you want to do if you want to just not futz around with using things like sample delay, you know, to time align different. Can't be. That's, to me, you're starting from a place of like, why do it? Because you can do it all in software. You know, you can do the speaker sim all within the DAW, and then it'll be locked in and stuff like that. So that's how I would recommend doing that. You guys are talking about Pyromania for some reason. That is a great guitar sound. It was Mutt Lange, like coming out of AC/DC, and just I find that period of so interesting, like of record production, is specifically Mutt Lange doing Highway to Hell, which is for an AC/DC record, getting a little more polished sounding, but still pretty nasty, you know, and then going Back in Black, which was full polished, but still so badass. And it's like Malcolm said, it's like it was cleaner, but it was still, I remember seeing him in an interview talking about that. It's the perfect sounding rock record, right? Back in Black. Then we move on from there and we get into some later, I love For Those About to Rock too, by the way. That's a great sounding record, but I think Mike Shipley mixed that, and it's getting into a little bit of a different sonic thing, right? So sticking with Mutt, he then moves on and does, you know, he's Def Leppard, right? Like Pyromania. Did he do High and Dry? I think he did, right? And then he, which is kind of like their Highway to Hell, I guess. And then he does Pyromania, which is getting into the, you know, now they're becoming like Superstar Band or whatever. And it's getting a little more perfect, you know. And then Hysteria, which is really like they're Back in Black, I suppose. But that record sounds so polished, but I can't imagine it any other way. It's like Purple Rain by Prince or 1984 by Van Halen. It's got a very signature sonic thing, but that's a piece of the 80s that I couldn't imagine it being different. But this is where you hear Mutt going full, we're going to use Rockmans and, you know, drum machines they had to use because of the Rick's, you know, situation with his arm and stuff like that. So they did the record the way that they could. But I think also probably what came out of him making that record is going, I don't need to have drummers. I can, this is very, I can program, I can do this, you know, and it's got these very consistent sounds and it's all, you know, quantized and very perfect and all that kind of stuff. So now we're getting pretty far away from Highway to Hell, like the, you know, and then we, you know, that became the Mutt Lange thing, you know, and I don't think I would have loved to have seen him make another Highway to Hell at some point with somebody. Did he ever with another band? Can anybody point me to another Mutt Lange that's not gone full Shania Twain? You know what I mean? I'm just not sure. It's interesting, I think. What is your best clean sound for you? That's a good question, says Door. I would say if I could only have one, it's a great you know, sort of that the PT 100 really, which is somewhere between a super reverb and a twin, the circuit. You know, it's a great clean sound. You can go full combo, like for me, a super or super deluxe can be nice, but I like the 410, you know, the more speakers thing is nice, and the tens are a little more fast and stuff. So it's a great sound. I mean, I always love Stevie Ray Vaughan's, you know, tone when he played Clean Lenny, or, you know, those types of things, you know. So if it's who knows exactly what he used on that, but my quintessential sort of Stevie Ray Vaughan sound is, I guess, Elma Combo, where he was using, I think, vibroverbs and super, which sounds like perfect for his style to me. It was, I like that better than actually when he got into the Marshalls and stuff later and was mixing things up a little bit. I always thought that this Elma Combo thing was his, you know, and when he would play, it was so beautiful with that sound when he would turn it down a little bit and do the, you know, Lenny or Riviera Paradise or those types of sounds. I don't know what was on that, but that's such a gorgeous sound to me. So it's, you know, you can sit there and just play beautiful chords and simple melodies, and it just is, that's epic to me. So that's a clean sound that I really, you know, think is fantastic. There's a lot of clean sounds I like, though. I love AC30's clean too, which is a different thing. There's chimey as hell and just kind of, you know, that's a great sound too. I remember seeing Carl Verheyen, who had a great guitar sound when he used to, you know, play these live shows at Baked Potato and stuff. And I remember seeing him there with two AC30s and a Marshall. So he used to run the Marshall dirty, and then he'd run the AC30s for his clean sound in stereo. And that sounded amazing. Two ACs in stereo for clean. So that's a great sound too. But yeah, something like that, you know, is my ideal clean. It's always a bit of a compromise when you use a channel switching amp. Like, okay, live, I used to use this, which is a very AC30 top boost circuit. Essentially, it's a RSA. And then I went to the PT100 when John was like, I can make you an amp with everything in one. You don't have to tour with all this stuff. You know, it was like going to a simpler thing. But you're somewhat limiting yourself when you do that, I guess, because you've only got one cabinet then. So now you've got to come up with a cabinet. And the PT100 cabinet, the 212, is kind of that reflected in a cabinet. I'm using the Creamback H75, which is a heavier magnet G12H30 style speaker. My standard thing for dirty tones is greenbacks. I like the smaller magnets, and I like that kind of more woody mid-range thing. But the H75s work great across the board, clean and dirty. So, and it's a closed back cabinet. So my point is that I really like open back cabinets for clean sound, actually. I love the way they spread across the stage. I love the slightly more, I don't know, the way the note blooms on the low strings is really beautiful, like on old Fender combos and things like that. I love that kind of, you know, that slightly poofy, pillowy thing that they do that closed back cabinet just doesn't do. It's more driving and direct, you know, in the tone. So, you know, for me, that open back thing is really, you know, that's my quintessential clean sound. But, you know, it's nice having one amp and that's it live, especially for a working player. If I was, you know, yeah, if I was a guitar star doing my own band and I had lots of money and I was the only person in the band playing guitar or whatever, I would probably still be using a multiple amp rig and switching to like open back cabinets and stuff like that. But my gear, my signature gear, I always say is a reflection of my job a little bit more as a touring sideman and as a kind of working musician. So that's what you see reflected in the PT15, the PT100, and the cabinets we put out and all that stuff. It's a little bit more, you're going to see other players that their signature gear is a reflection of they're a guitar star and they're the one in the band that can, you know, whatever. And so they've got a specific, you know, my stuff is a little bit more chameleon, working musician stuff. And I think I live in a slightly unique, by being a jack of all trades, I'm in a unique position as somebody with signature gear. Like, because now you're seeing somebody that has to do a bunch of different jobs and stuff like that and is coming up with tools that are a little bit more geared towards variety and the working musician that maybe has to only, you know, like, even though the PT100 is heavy and it's a big amp, it still does a lot in one package, you know. Great cleans, great dirty, great rhythm sounds, whatever, like all in one with a cabinet that sounds great, all in one. I'm very long-winded about it, but I hope that makes sense. Where it's like my optimum clean would still be an open back, if if I could carry tons of stuff, you know. So hope that makes sense. Chef Jeff is up there in the top chat. He says, "You are the immaculate nerd." Thank you. Stay gold, pony boy. Stay gold, pony boy. Stay gold, pony boy. Putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Stay gold, pony boy. Oops, I just missed the... You can call me pony boy if you want to. That's fine. Will you be reviewing the new Benson Germanium Fuzz? I would love to, now that I've tried the Preamp Mark II pedal. Let's just show it since it's sitting right here. Because this is the Benson design, I do believe, right? I love these collaborations they're doing with. That's the other thing. I'm just noticing. I didn't even really notice that they had, until today, they had Maris on the end of the reverb. Nice Chase Bliss, folks. And Benson on the end of the preamp. That's cool. I like it. The fuzz in that thing's great. So, and I like germanium fuzzes. I would love to try it. Excuse me. John is up there in the top chat. And he says, do you find that IRs make a lot of amps sound the same as opposed to a real cab? It seems to dominate the characteristics of the tone. You know what, dude? That is just the character of one speaker sound with one mic position. So consider this, that when even when you've got a physical cabinet, right, and you plug your different amps into it, it sounds different, but also where you have the cab, like where you're standing close to the cab, that's all changing, right? Like on different days, plugging an amp in, you know, moving the volumes up and down, whatever, moving around, the cab can sound different with different amps, but the sound, literally the sound, when you're standing here playing and then you move over here, the sound changes. So now, okay, you're playing with one amp with a real cab. You pick up the amp, you move it off, you move another one on. You don't remember where you were standing exactly before or the exact volume level you had the head at and all that. And you're moving a little, oh, now this sounds like this. The reality is it actually sounds just like an IR would in that one static position. So that's the thing with an IR is you're getting one microphone in a position, right? Like that's, you know, this kind of a... Yes, it homogenizes things a little bit, but that's, I'm saying that no, I actually don't think so. I think that, you know, the exact same thing happens in the real cabinet world. It's just that, you know, it'd kind of be the equivalent of like on an IR, if you tried an IR with a different mic position slightly or whatever, right? And it moved around a little bit. And then like then you switch the amp. Like there's those variables when you're moving around a real cab that just don't exist in the IR world because it's a fixed position. So when I have a cab in the other room mic'd up and I don't change the mic position, I get the exact same thing happening in the real microphone world when I switch from amp to amp to amp, which I can easily do in here with the different amps using the switcher. The characteristics are not, you know, if you go between different, well, you hear it in my video where I'm comparing high gain amps. Actually, recently I called it an amps in the zone video, but where you hear the PT100 and the top hat, the Germanium, all those amps back here, you can hear the sounds that and how much they change. And I think you would hear the same amount of sound changing if you were using IRs is what I'm getting at. So, which is to say that there's a lot of similarities when you're playing through one cabinet. Okay. Let's see here. Jason Tong is up there as well. He says, hey, in the super chat, you guys are super chatting me like crazy today, which I totally appreciate. Thank you. Cheers, Pete. Have you tried or put together a Warmoth Particicaster? Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I have actually. I had a guitar. You're making me think back a lot of years, but I had this green kind of hum single Strat with a Wilkinson, one of those style trims that's kind of that narrow trim, you know, that they made that had one of those on it, and it was all Warmoth, that guitar. It was pretty cool. They always have a slightly kit feel to them or something. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a certain thing to it, but I haven't had a hell of a lot of experience trying different, you know, different neck shapes and things. I'm really experimenting, but there's a slight kind of, there's always a slight homebrew feeling to them to me, which isn't to say it's a bad thing. It's just is what it is, you know? Yeah. But the neck on my, if you've seen like the EVH video I did a while ago, the tone video, the gold Strat that's in that video, that's a Warmoth neck. It's not my favorite neck, actually, which isn't a slag. It's just kind of it's a big V is what it is. It's kind of a 50s V, not really right for that particular guitar for what I'm doing with it. But I've owned a few Warmoth products is what I'm getting at, and tried them and stuff. Yeah. How do you usually set up a clean sound in the Helix? I just would approach it like I do a real amp. I really like the Lone Star Channel 1. I don't know what they call it, Texas something or other, or whatever it's called in the Helix, but the I might have it up here actually on my not actually seeing it. I'm just looking through my presets here. I can't remember where my clean sound is, but I just wanted to see the name of that, whatever the Lone Star is, if you can find that. I can't find it right now. The Lone Star Channel 1, that's a really good sounding clean sound, and I would use that. And then generally I'll load in IRs in the Helix and use like some third-party stuff. Like I really like the like Schleston A type or something, or something along those lines would sound good. Yeah, and generally I like compressors on my clean, like on my pedal boards and stuff for clean sound. So I'll always use a compression, and so I'll put one of those, and then a little schmutz, delay, reverb, something. Overdrive Guitar Channel says, I'm having trouble writing original material. I can come up with good riffs, but a complete and cohesive sounding song has been elusive. Any advice? You can try some different things, like, some things I used to do that I don't really do anymore, but copy the structure of or certain things about other songs that you like. So don't copy the harmonic content or the chord changes, but listen to a song and the way it's structured by a band, and I like that song. Listen to it and then try and copy that structure-wise. So like where the verse is, where the, as a songwriting exercise, where the bridge happens, the length of the bridge, and try and write something that fits. If it goes double time at the end, do that. Maybe rhythmically you could copy. For instance, Perplexed off of my first solo record, I was really just screwing around with drum programming and trying to see how close I could get to the intro of My Hero by Foo Fighters. So if you listen to it, it's exactly the same. And then I wrote a riff to it, but I was playing that drum beat in. So I was getting inspired by that drum beat, actually, what ended up happening. And I ended up writing something that worked over top of it. So the intro to that is, I used to do things like that. Take a beat that like using a drum program or drum machine or something like that you normally wouldn't write over, and do that, get inspired by grooves as opposed to starting with your same sort of strumming patterns or whatever that you would start with. Put on a groove and then write to that, and get inspired by the drums, whether it's a waltz feel or a 6/8 thing, or like a jungly, I don't know, Bo Diddley sounding beat or something like that, or, something that just throws you off your game a little bit and into something else. So those are some things that you can do. I get inspired by drum grooves all the time. Hope that's helpful. Some things. Also just learning songs, learn Beatles songs, because they're so brilliant. Learn 10 Beatles songs, like how to play them, and that'll inspire your writing and your melody and your, like learn how to sing them too. So you're like, oh, he goes to the note. Oh, that's interesting. They would pick some interesting notes to go to sometimes, melodically and stuff like that. That are outside the norm. Reza is in the top chat, and he says, any thoughts about designing an affordable-ish, low wattage, bedroom happy lunchbox PT variant? You could call it Le Petit PT. I like that. Yeah, not exactly what you're saying, but yeah, I've thought about options for what you're talking about, and there's definitely, like, we're batting things around actually that may be coming. So over time, not saying anytime soon or anytime super soon or whatever, but there's definitely some things out there in the works. Son of a bitch, it happened again. I was talking about it 3 weeks ago, the dribble cup. I've been drinking it all morning, and then it just fucking exploded. Sorry. Unprofessional. That's why you're here, though, right? It's like a reality show. Are you planning to hit StreamYard's 3-hour limit again today? I know, right? I think that's what happened last time. Last week I went for I think it was like there's a limit where it cuts off at 3 hours. I think that's exactly what happened. I went about 3 hours and 1 minute, and then so no, I'm not going to do that. I will stop in 20 minutes at 1:30. Go 2 hours today. Let's see. Pete's Black Particicaster sounds incredible. I love that guitar. It's a unique sounding guitar. It's got a lot of bright, spanky edge to it, and it's partially that body, the hard ash situation. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? What's up with the F in the first part of the solo in Stairway? Is it the 6th? What do you mean? Just the chord? That standard kind of A minor to G to F? Yeah, it's kind of that natural minor sound, isn't it? Natural minor situations. The Aeolian mode. Lord Fingers, do you use optical input from aux box to interface? Well, I had a whole thing about this a couple of weeks ago. I actually quit doing that because I was having issues, and I never figured it out. But I used to come out of the output of it, not the toss link, but the other one, and use a converter box. Then somebody told me I don't have to do that, and they were right, and they showed me. But anyway, I digress. I'm just running analog out of it now because I find it easier than pulling up the digital input and having to hit the sample rate convert because the aux is 44.1 and all this stuff. So I just plug in the analog outs out of it, and I run it into my patch bay, and it shows up on my patch bay now as a left-right analog thing. That's how I do it. Simpler. Get the work done. I tore my hair out for like an hour trying to figure out why I couldn't get the digital out to work. It had worked for years, and then it all of a sudden wasn't working. And it was like an hour of just wanting to cut a guitar apart and not getting any work done. And screw this. Let's go analog. And it exists like that to this day. Let's see. Any chance of doing another episode of Amps the Zone with a dual recto and Soundgarden 90s inspired tones? That could be cool. I don't have access to an old 2-channel one. That would be what I would want for that. Never my favorite amp. I would sooner do a Block Logo 5150 or, the Soldano or something. The dual rectifier, I had one. I had a 3-channel and I used it. They're a little loose for me in the bottom. And if I was doing the same thing, I would use a Soldano now, to be honest. If I wanted that big grindy, that's the amp it was based on anyway. To me, it sounds better. It's a better amp, right? Let's just be honest. I know that was a thing, dual rectifier, and that was like that was the sound of the 90s, but it's not a sound I particularly love. Okay, Ty Tabor is the exception, of course. Dogman, I mean, God, my favorite Ty sounds are I like when he uses a Marshall too, like on Ear Candy, but the early lab stuff. But he can make anything sound good. He's just that guy where he dials it in to sound, he just knows what he's doing. William's asking, do you have any experience with Fujigen? Yeah, I mean, I know about Fujigen. I big guitar manufacturer in Japan, and they used to have their own store in Daikanyama that I used to go to sometimes that had their guitars, but they're like kind of contract manufacturer for different people and stuff, right? Over the years, a lot of guitars that, might say something else on them are actually made by Fujigen. Nice guitars, really nice guitars, honestly. Yeah. Okay, what else we got here? A full show on the SLO would be awesome. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a good candidate for the Amps in the Zone because it was kind of like it's a classic at this point. It came out in '87. Try and use an old one and a new one and all that kind of stuff and show them both. I like the SLO, I like this one that I have here and stuff, and it's a good contrast to my other high gain. It's a different high gain sound that I really like. So, That's the truth. I saw a picture of them in the studio lately. I think you're talking about King's X, and spotted a Lab Series amp. Yeah, that I can't wait, dude. There's new King's X coming out, and evidently it's pretty badass sounding from all the reports that I've heard. They made it really close to where I live, actually, in Pasadena. And I can't wait, man. I love that band. I always will. So great to hear. Yeah. Do I have a favorite Plexi plugin? You know, I mean, the PT 100, I can get great Plexi style sounds out of the UA. So there's that, my own plugin. But if it's specifically a Marshall Plexi style, the Mercurial ones are really good. The ones from that company in Russia, they're Marshall based. I did a video for them years ago, and it was great. Remember, like 3-4 years ago. Their cab sounds are really nice that it comes with. Just a really, really good plugin. So check them out. Mercurial. It's on my channel. That was the first one that comes to mind as being like, you know, where you get an instant reaction, like, this is impressive. And I remember it sounding really good. They make good plugins. I mean, their Ecstasy one is great too, to be honest. Yeah. Where can I get your first CD, says Lagom. Well, I'm working on this. I just shipped them. So I've almost run out of physical CDs. I don't have any more. And do I get any more? It's like, they're kind of expensive to buy. Here's the problem. When you're getting physical CDs, which if I was going on a clinic tour, I would probably order 500 more or something, because people like to still buy them, and they like, you know, signed copies and stuff, and they'd be like, okay, that makes sense if I was going on a clinic tour, but that ain't happening anytime soon. It's just, yeah, it's going to be out on streaming soon. So I've made Guitar Nerd available for streaming, but it takes a minute to get it up there. I asked friggin' CD Baby. I asked them like weeks ago or a couple months ago to do it, and it never showed up. And so I contacted them again. Hey, I asked for you guys to switch this album to streaming. Can you? Oh, yes, we'll do that. And it's like, it's dealing with them is a pain in the ass sometimes, to be honest. I like them basically, but they also piss me off. Honest assessment. But anyways, so when you go buy CDs, like say you buy 300, well, it costs $800 for 300. Say you buy 500, it costs $900. You get 200 more for another $100 or something. And then say you want 1,000. Well, now it costs, you know, $1,020 or whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so it's like, well, should I just buy 1,000 then? And it's like, but it's $1,000, but you feel dumb spending 800 on 300. So you don't. This is what you get into when you order CDs. Anybody out there that's put out their own record can probably relate. So it's that outlay of like, and then how long am I going to hold on to these for? And in another 2 years, if I still have some, is it still going to be something that people want? I don't know. You know, it's just a thing. It's like, you know, I'm not sure if it's something, but anyway, I shipped some to CD Baby as PT2 CDs as well as Guitar Nerd. So they have a few in stock, but the thing that's confusing is CD Baby doesn't have a physical store anymore. So they don't sell them to their store. I send them to them, and then they send them to their partners, and then those stores sell them. So if you search on the internet, you might find one, but it's like, I know it's a difficult, I don't know. I'm a little, as an indie guy doing this stuff, I'm a little between a rock and a hard place, like with some of this stuff. So it's confusing, but there's just not a hell of a lot of demand for the CDs anymore outside of the clinics. That's what I find. You know, I saw that numbers go down. I mean, from when I originally put out Guitar Nerd, it was mostly CDs selling, you know, and then from 2011 till now, it's just totally every year it gets less and less and less people that care about a CD. That's the reality of it. So do you do it, or do you just do digital releases, you know? Dory says, what do you think about buying B-stock guitars? I mean, you know, if it's a small finish imperfection or something, I think it's fine. Those are the things that make them affordable. For look at Eddie Van Halen, his body was a second with a knot in it or something, right? Now that guitar's worth, like, you know, so it doesn't really matter, I don't think, right? If it's just a small finish flaw or something, just maybe you can figure out why it's B stock or why somebody considers it a, you know, less than. John says neural quad cortex quad cortex gapless preset switching. Not right now. It takes a minute to switch presets. I don't know exactly how long the audio dropout is, but there's a second. But with a processor as powerful as what is in that thing, actually 4 processors, there's no reason why. There's a scene mode in it, and you can literally load up like 4 different chains of things going on, right? So just use scenes. If you need something that's preset, it's just slightly different than making individual presets and then switching and wanting spillover. No, it doesn't do that. But you can build like a super complicated rig within one preset and switch things on and off and go between. So like if you need a chorused, clean, sparkly sound, and then you need to go to your heavy distortion with delay, and then you need to go to, you know, a Leslie sound, and then you need to go to some sort of, I don't know, affected octave shifted down thing for the outro. You can do all that within one preset and use scenes mode and switch between them, and it'll be gapless. So yeah, kind of like the snapshots in a Helix, but even more powerful because you can do 4 chains in the quad cortex. That's just the reality of it. Mark Becker is there in the top chat. He says, "What's your favorite Univibe style pedal?" I don't claim to be a Univibe expert, because I know, like, you know, there's people like Stevens that are really, you know, he knows a lot about Univibes and that sound, Steve Stevens. But from the ones I've tried, which is, you know, a few that are out there, I really like the dry bell stuff. So their Univibes they've got a couple different versions out. They're small, they're the size of a Phase 90, you know, and they've got great options for switching, you know, like the buffer sound and all that in and out on it, as well as just the character of the vibe sounds right to me with the kind of the lumpy sort of thing that a real Univibe does. Like it's got a nice kind of vintage warmth / dirt / you know, some whatever to it that sounds correct to me. Some of them sound too clean to me sometimes, like too perfect. Or I use the Mobius one, so I'm simulating it in the digital realm. That's what's on my board, and if I need to use Univibe, that's what I use. I just use it. Although I could use, you know, I've got another dry bell pedal, the Unit 67, on my board in my optional slot. That's like, you know, on my pedal board, I've got a couple spaces there that aren't in loops on one side, and it's like if I need to switch a pedal in and out, I'll put the one there. If I needed a Univibe sound, I would probably switch out the Unit 67 and put the, like if I wanted a real truer like analog Univibe, I would put it right there on my board and use it, you know, for if I was playing, you know, some Robin Trower or something like that, or well, wait, Robin used more like Phase 45, didn't he? Well, you know what I mean. If it was Hendrix or something, you know, if I just or Gilmore and I wanted a really true, you know, yeah, you know what I'm saying. That's what I would do. That's dry bell. Don't look further. They're fine. Soupy, like it should be, says Scott. Yeah, they've got a soupy, slightly, you know, like the you know, the way it crosses over or whatever is, it's not this perfect sweep like a phaser. It's got a lumpy kind of quality to it that I like. I always call it lumpy. Can you talk about your top hat? Is it a good plexi alternative? I think they're great value for if you want a good 50 watt, you know, it's an Implextor 50. If you can find an old one, I think they're terrific. I've got another one here that I may buy, which is this one. I'll have a matching set. This is being sold by somebody. This is an old King Royale. So this is AC30, basically. This thing sounds great. And I've had one combo format for a number of years. That was my main, when I first started getting really good touring gigs. I was playing with Fire for Fighting, and now I'm playing on some, you know, bigger theaters and proper stages and stuff. My rig was a King Royale into a 412 in that period. So I ran the internal speakers. I probably mismatched the ohms, I don't know, but I used the internal speakers in the amp as well as a 412, and I had them both mic'd, and that was a great sound when I listened to old recordings of those days, of those shows. So I always liked the King Royale. Those early top hats are great. I mean, they're really well made, really well wired up, and just simple circuits. And yeah, the Implexors are great. It does the 50 watt Marshall thing really well. It's, you know, probably pretty close to indistinguishable to a good early 70s Marshall when you set it up, you know. I don't really end up using like there's a switch labeled fat and treble. That's supposed to be a little more JTM 45. I might use that sometimes, but like the sound that I get out of it with that on, and then also with the pull boost off, which is basically a bright cap switch. It'll switch a 70s style bright cap in and out. I don't like it with it pushed in and in the fat position. It's too dark to me. Some people might like it. Probably work good with pedals like that, but it just doesn't have any sparkle to it to me like that. So I'll generally like it. Like it's okay in the fat position on the switch, but with the pull boost on, which is sort of like JTM 45 front end, but with the bright cap of a late 60s or early 70s. So then you're getting away from whatever. Sounds good like that. And then it just, generally speaking, I like it with the bright cap on, I guess. I like that teeth. Yeah. Okay. Braxall says, can you hear 0.5 milliseconds of latency? Appears the difference between the aux and the 2 notes is 0.5. I think that, yeah, it's probably going to create a little comb filtery stuff. Anything different creates a little comb filtery stuff when it comes to that digital latency thing. You know, I mean, you can literally see it in your DAW. If you break it down to the sample level, you'll see the 2 sounds, and one slightly later than the other one, you know. And so I don't think it'll work, is the reality. Yeah. I got the vaccine last Friday, says Legome. Hope it means live music soon. Yeah, you know, I hope so too, man. I was thinking about that, like maybe because there's this, you know, people that are hesitant about vaccine. I got no problem getting a vaccine, that's for sure. So I've had a ton of vaccines in my life. So, you know, follow the science and let's all get back to normal. But what I was thinking was might offer some incentive, like, and I don't know if they're still talking about doing this or what, but if they did have some sort of like, you know, like if you're vaccinated, you get to do this thing, be it go to a concert or be it whatever. If you can show that you've had it done, and then you can be in a room with a whole bunch of other people that have had a vaccine, at least like, you know, because a vaccine doesn't make it so that you can't necessarily catch the infection. It just means you're not going to get severely ill from it or die, right, is what they say. So, and then jury's still out on some of them. They say might offer protection from actually catching it. But if you had a room full of people at a concert, right, or a club or whatever, going to a thing, and if everybody was vaccinated, I guess you could still technically it could be spread, but nobody in that room is going to drop dead the next week or 3 weeks later or whatever from the infection at that point. And so maybe it makes sense to have like a passport or whatever to get into that event, right? The only problem is that thinking it was like, well, you could still then take it out of that room and then give it to other people that haven't been vaccinated yet. So maybe it doesn't totally make sense, but I don't know. They got to move towards something like that, right? Eventually, that some new normal situation. That's congratulations though on getting it. And I know a few other people that have had it already. And I would be totally down if it was available right now. I would leave here and go. I'd say goodbye and end the show. Get out of here. So anyways, Bent Tom says that is a bad fast road to socialism. I don't really agree with that. I don't think so. It's not. We're in a pandemic. You know, the vaccine has nothing to do with an economic, you know, capitalism, socialism, or anything like that. It's got to do with just saving lives. So. It's science. I'm a man of science. Do you guys want to know my favorite book? I'd like to take this moment to recommend my favorite book. This is where I'm coming from. If you, I'll show you what the cover looks like. I'll show you what the cover looks like so that you know, and you can go out and get it if you want to. This is The Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan. Looks like that. Go buy it on Amazon. This book will make you feel smarter. What this book is about, as you can see, science as a candle in the dark. He wrote this book. This is his kind of, I think, defining book, really. It's all about science, and it's all about making informed decisions and thinking for yourself by doing the hard work to find the empirical evidence. You know, it's about keeping your mind open like a child, you know, to possibilities. You have to keep your mind open that anything is possible, you know, but also being relentlessly what's the word I'm looking for? A skeptical, very evidence driven, you know, talk to the best experts, look for the truth in things, you know? And so this book I love because it's all about that. It's all about finding the truth in things. So when it comes to things like vaccines, or when it comes to, you know, it's just like the best evidence you can do is, I don't want to get political on this show, I never do, but I'm just saying, think for yourself and find the truth by going to the best sources. Like scientists, you know, I was watching a picture the other day of, you know, was it Opportunity, or I can't remember, the rover on Mars, but it was recording the wind sounds on Mars with a panoramic photo that it had taken. I guess it was video, you know, or maybe it was a stitched together photos, but it was panning across and you're listening to the sounds of the winds on Mars, right? Whoever got that thing there, that's who I want to listen to. Not some like, oh, my aunt heard this story about her friend that like had a problem with whatever, and that. Just, I don't want to know about that. I want to know about the rover on the moon with the recording the sounds, because we have the ability to do that, and that's what I trust in. So that's just where Pete Thorn is coming from. You know, I am a man of science. So Carl Sagan, The Demon Haunted World, all about. I felt smart. My friend told me, you're going to feel smarter after you read this book. You're going to feel empowered. You know. And I read it, and it's the best book I've ever read in my life, to be honest. It was just so like, yes, this is where it's at, you know. Anyways, great Sunday socials, Peter Evans. Thanks, man. Where does the time go? I know, it's crazy. What's that link for picks and stuff? Oh, yeah, you're right. My Sweetwater link. If you want to support the show, if you like what I do, Sweetwater link's down in the video description below. If you need picks or a kazoo or a delay pedal, it's all there. John Hutchinson says, thoughts on new Gibsons, considering a new SG Junior for $200 off new. My experience with new Gibsons are poor quality control and heavy. That can be, you know, it's a tough thing, like to think about buying. I'm just going to put up Tom's thing here because I want to respond to that. It's a tough thing with Gibsons. It's like, I found the same thing. I don't know if I would buy one mail order, to be honest. I would go to a store and find one I like. That's my honest feel. I still feel with that guitar brand in particular. There's other ones. Fender, I might be okay with ordering something. I feel like Gibsons they still don't have my total 100% vote of confidence in the consistency of, you know, you can find great ones, but I would probably want to try before I buy. Honestly, the way I feel. I know it's tough I feel like that about most guitars though, but there would be some with a Sir. I had an amazing experience ordering one across the country and then getting it. And my first Sir was like, it was perfect when I got it, and it was pre-owned, you know, so they're so consistent. But that's just a reflection on the builder. So Ben Tom says, you misunderstood me. What I meant is I have a compromised immune system and therefore cannot get a vaccine. Well, once again, that's just science and relying on the best available information to you from your doctor, you know, and from your, like, should I do this? Well, you want to go, you don't want to say, well, I don't know, like somebody, you know what I'm saying, right? Like not hearsay from somebody on whether or not you should do it. With your particular medical condition and what's going on, you talk to the experts, you know, that's all I'm saying, you know. And trust them. Like, trust the number one person to trust actually when it comes to all this stuff is a qualified medical professional. Right? Talk to a doctor. Don't judge whether or not you should get a vaccine on something your friend said or some story you heard about. I had a conversation like this with somebody the other day, and it was driving me a little bit insane. I didn't even get into it, to be honest. I just backed off. But where it's like, oh, I heard that from a friend of mine that's a chiropractor that they have a patient that got a reverse reaction to. It's like, okay, but it's a chiropractor, and it's like, not the disc chiropractors, but they're not the person to ask about a vaccine. They're just not, they don't do vaccines, you don't ask your dentist about it either, or a veterinarian. See how I think? This is how I think. I hope it's not annoying to some. It probably is, but whatever. I'm old enough that I guess I don't care, right? You are who you are, and I am who I am. Joe F is up there in the top chat. He's in Canada. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. And great chat as always. No politics, please, says Bill. Yeah, I agree. But I consider this to be more like a science meets just a kind of the reality that we're all, actually doesn't have anything to do with politics, does it? You know, it's just got to do with we're all going through this damn pandemic, which is not political. It's crossed all the borders and gone everywhere in the world, and we're all dealing with it, right? So it's like just a really conversation on how we get back to making music is how it started. How can we go to a show? I'd love to go to a show, you know, and get everybody back employed making music again. We all want the same thing, which is just to how do we get back to some or not back, but move forward into some realm of like, okay, we want to go to shows, and you know, believe me, I want it as bad as anybody. How does the Sir SL68 compare to the Metro 1200 or 12,000 series and the Germino? You know, they're all variations on a very similar circuit. I've never tried back to back, although I've tried all these amps, and they all sound like a good Marshall. You know, more so than a vintage guitar. I mean, I guess there's transformers, but you can get great transformers. I mean, they're all a bag of parts. It's not different. The code has kind of been cracked, I think, and you can get a great new. That's what I was saying about the top hat. I mean, it sounds like a really good 50-watt Marshall. It's not worlds apart or anything. You know, it's like in a track. I mean, you know, that Soldano down there to me sounds every bit as good as the old ones. I listened. I went back and forth. It sounds great because it was done right. You know, it's more comes down to the choices of the individual parts you make. If one has, you know, stiffer filtering than another one, or, you know, maybe the transformers and stuff, you know, for sure that's going to affect the sound a little bit. But, you know, so you use the good transformer that, you know, try and get a Marin one, or, you know, good Haber is always a great thing, which is what, you know, Metro uses. And the Germino's a Marin, I do believe. And SL68 is a Haber, same transformer as the Metro, I think. So, you know, just I say basically go with, well, you know, the Sirs are excellent, you know. Another thing that's going to affect is the bright cap. Like John hasn't been putting a bright cap on them from the factory. So you might get it, go, oh, it's a little softer sounding, but it's got a grade across the sweep, but it doesn't sound exactly like an old one. Well, the bright cap right there. If you get an old Plexi with a aggressive bright cap in it, there's your teeth right there. And you just simply put that one little friggin' part that costs 80 cents or whatever on the volume pot of the same amp. And it's going to, so there's these little things that can really affect people's perception of how different these amps are when they're 99.9% the same, but then, oh, this filtering spec is a little different here, or this thing's different. We're talking about a box of, it's a circuit, you know, it's not a lot different than, you know, different tube screamers are different. There's just more variation, I guess. Does that make sense? I hope so. I hope so. I hope so. Who's up there? Joe F is in the super chat, and he just was being a nice guy and just saying hey, and I do appreciate that. Thanks, man. Let's put him up on the screen if I can find him. There he is. Joe F. Thanks, Joe. Let's see here. Jeff says politics in music, no good. I don't agree with that, because Pink Floyd, Bob Dylan, Neil Young. Great music is inherently political. So, you know, sure, there's I just want to escape and have a good time and hear songs about party and rock and roll all night. But, you know, there's also, you know, Forded in Ohio, right? You know, and, you know, music is inherently, you know, Floyd or whatever, you know, it's just part of it. You know, it's like, it's you know, politics. I mean, we have to get to a place where it's okay to, you know, for art to reflect life again and not be so offensive to others. That's just where we're at in life, where it's like we're also, you know, reacting to one another and stuff. Believe me, all I friggin' want in this world is to have a functioning thing where there can be ideas and differing ideas and things like that, and people can have conversations and disagree, but still respect one another. That was a thing, you know. I remember Clinton talking about, because there was a lot of deals done across the aisle back in his era, with even when, you know, it was a Republican House and stuff like that. And he said, you know what? This made a lot of sense to me. He said, and he's a centrist, really, right? But he was like, you know, the boring work of government, it's not the sexiest or most exciting thing, but it all gets done down the center in the United States. When when they make deals and stuff and it gets done, when it's not this super one way or super the other way, and you're offending a lot of people. So no, it's like this. We get together, we hash it out in a room, and we do that made a lot of sense to me. It seems like the times in the United States when things, if it's kind of 2 steps forward, 1 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 steps back, but that's when most of the work gets done. I don't know, like the whole tone down the heat and just let's talk it out, ideas, battle of ideas, you know, whatever. But and then at the end of the day, we shake hands and we can agree. Doesn't that sound nice? I don't know. That's where I'm coming from. Like whether you're whatever side of the spectrum you're on, you know, it's like that's where I'm at. So. Not talking about Paul. Once again, just talking about before the internet, said Guitar 77. Shiny Bee says, don't hold your breath. I know, but hey, I'm an optimist. I really am. I'm an optimist. Ever going to record again with Holly Henderson, says Max. You know, Max, actually, she's got a song coming out where I played a solo on it. And it's a great track. And I love the track. And I was really happy with the solo that I played on it. So I think she's going to put it out in the next week or something like that. So there is a song that we did together, but it's her. She's gotten so good at, you know, production and mixing and all kinds of things herself. She's actually a staff writer for like, I think it's BMG or something now. So she's, you know, doing stuff for them. And she's come since the time we made our record. It's like a whole nother level of like, she's really killing it. So, yeah, so that track should be out soon. The last one she put out, I thought was just beautiful. She's like the modern day Kate Bush or something, you know. She really is. Building a home recording studio, what are the dimensions of your room, says Josh. Great question. You know, I have no idea, to be honest. I think it's like about 18 feet that way, and then width is maybe 12, something like that. But it's not perfect. It was more a consideration of, I didn't take into consideration the acoustic space that much, to be honest, which Florin's watching. He'll be shaking his head at me and he'll know because he was consulting with me a little bit on that. But I wanted the room to be the right size for the space that I built it into, basically, because I built that wall and the ceiling and stuff. So I carry these panels around with me now. You can't see them all, but you can see the ones behind me. And then I've got exact mirror image on the wall over here, and then the two beside me that you see sometimes in videos, the wooden panels. I carry them with me to tune the room. And they work great. They, you know, diffuse and absorb just right to the point where you can basically, if I carry these around, I got a room that's, you know, 20 by 10 or 18 by 11 or whatever, you know, I can kind of tune the room enough to, it's not perfect. It's not some recording studio, you know, pro designer guy that came in here and did it or whatever, but you hear the work I do, it works fine. It's a little more homebrew style, as it is with everything with me, you know. So anyways, okay, so what else we got here? Question next time. Does a pickup make for next time? Does a pickup? Oh shit, I do have to go, don't I? It's 1:43. I'm gonna run into my. Oh no, still got to. Well, I'll go. Okay, I'll go another 7 minutes or so, and then I'll get out of here. A question for next time: does a pickup made? Let's just make it for this time. Today sounds identical to one made decades earlier. Dude, that's a really tough one. Like just because of like the whole magnet degaussing thing, and then also is the wire the same, and is the is everything the same? You know, I think that the best ones that are out there, they can definitely do, something that's comparable to the old, I don't think there's these magic. I think there's great old pickups, and I think there were some that were kind of, the pickups in my Strat there's one Sir in the neck. It's the ML standard, basically, or they call it the V63 now. And the other two are the originals. And that was just because the original neck pickup in my old Strat was a very low resonant peak. And I just wanted something a little different. So John said, well, try this pickup in there. And he put it in. And it sounds great. And it blends perfectly with the other ones. I don't even think about it, Sort of like Eric Johnson used to use an HS2 in the bridge of the Strat, a DiMarzio, with one coil tapped, I think. And then the other two were originals. Nobody ever complained, So it's just, there is something really neat about the old pickups, but I don't think it's necessarily magical. I think when we do this pickup video coming up, the EVH shootout pickup video, there's going to be some interesting stuff that people might garner from it. And I've got some from Rewind here now, which is a company that a fellow sent me a beautiful book as well on PAFs that he wrote. from Rewind, and that was really nice of him, nice touch. But he sent a couple different pickups, which are his take, and he got really into it. One of the things that he does is, basically when Seymour rewound Eddie's pickup, he did it like Seymour would, I guess, which is he had a unique, I guess, sort of wind pattern. This is what the guy from, I'm learning things all the time, the guy from Rewind said that the wind pattern Seymour was doing was different, and he could basically put as much 42 gauge wire on a coil as possible, like to overwind it. And that's how he ended up with this 9K PAF sort of EVH pickup spec, evidently rewound PAF, but wound in the style of Seymour, had a certain sound, so I found that interesting. So, it's kind of, I don't know. I'm going to learn something making that video, and then I'll get back to you. I'll tell you more about, I guess, what I think about all those different pickups. But all things considered, I think if you get a great modern PAF alternative, they can sound probably just the pickups varied so much. So it's more like I heard somebody the other day say, and it's true. It's like if you got a certain PAF and you got a skilled winder that can look at it and see the pattern, scatter wound or whatever, how they, what wire they're using and how they wound it, and then the exact, the magnets, if you try and, the rough cast and all this stuff, it all makes a difference. And if you get somebody that knows how to do all that stuff, pickup's kind of like more than a guitar, the pickup is kind of like the amp, where it's basically a little bundle of parts. And if you can duplicate the bundle of parts, there's no reason why it shouldn't be really similar. Just like an amp can make a Germino sound like an old Marshall or whatever, it's just, whereas a guitar, it's a bundle of parts, but there's the wood, and there's things in, there's a lot of bundles of parts. Like there's the bridge, there's the pick, the bridge, the block, the saddles, there's like all this different stuff that can affect the tone. So it gets more complicated with, can a new guitar exactly replicate a vintage guitar? Pickup, I'm going to go yes. Hope that's helpful. Travis there in the super chat. Let me get to you. Wildwood Guitar sent something very special in Garnet. Read a few days ago. Nice. Perfection, sir. That's fantastic. He's talking about the PT signature guitar, of course. Wrote them a note of appreciation, gave you a shout out. This $10 all I have left. Well, dude, thanks so much for getting the guitar. And I love the red. My red one's got a broken string on it. And you're reminding me, that's probably a good task for me to do right now. I want to change the string so that I can actually use it. I've been playing the blue one. I love my blue one, but I want to play my red one too. My red one had a broken string, so I always pick up the blue one because it's just easier. But I do need to change the string so I can play my red one again. That's what happens. Anyways, yeah, thanks, dude, for getting the guitar, and I hope it serves you well for a long, long time to come. From the fellow Josh asking about the room dimensions, trying to decide they want a room to be so big for good EQ, but I'll have to do treatment like you. Yeah, you can only do what you can do in the space you're in when you're building a studio, right? And that was the thing. Like I say, my friend Lauren, he had a spec for a room that was a little bit smaller than this one. And I was like, okay, and I know it'll probably, maybe technically it'll sound right, but I want to utilize the amount of space that I'm renting in the place that I am to the best of the ability. Like you see it's crowded in here. See the guitars and I've cleaned up a little bit in here, but it always ends up, no matter what size room I'm in, it always ends up feeling small. Too much crap all over the place. That goes for any room that I'm in, but I wanted to make it as big as I could. That was just as important to me as actually having the perfect sound or whatever, So, yeah, moving down to the bottom of the chat. Maxwell says, so true. Got some PAFs from a local guy who has some of the old machines to make them a little imperfect among other things he does. They sound about the same as old real ones. There you go. Yeah, and the slightly imperfect thing is maybe important, which is like mismatched coils. Like they basically were, okay, it's not like they were handmade back in the day. They wound them on machines, and they wound them about the same number of turns, but it varied a little bit, and that little 3% mismatch between the coils it can affect the sound in a fairly significant way, I think, like not having the exact number of turns. Pickup will also get a little noisier. One thing about mismatched coils is that they don't hum cancel quite as well as a humbucker because part of it relies on the coils being the exact same strength. But those pickups always sound a little more flat to me. It can be a good thing, but it's like the slightly a little more open sound of a vintage pickup that isn't so perfect is part of the, Be part of the little magic. So how long does it take to change strings on a Floyd Rose? You know, if you do the thing where you kind of block the bridge in the back or whatever a little bit, and then I would just always like, I would even like literally dunk the bar so the strings went slack and then cut them all at once, you know, and then loosen all the things at once on the thing, pull all the strings out, unwrap them all at once, pull all the strings out the top, and then I would, you know, literally pull all the strings out, cut the ball, you know, put them in, lock all the ends. So now you've got all the strings hanging out of the end and then string them all. So I kind of do everything as opposed to one string at a time. If I was going for the fastest string change, I would do each step on all the strings. Does that make sense? Cut them all, remove them all, put them all in, lock them all down, put them all up and do the line, stretch them all, you know, and yeah, if I did that, I can go pretty fast. I mean, I could probably change in 10 minutes if I was really busting ass, you know? So yeah. Daniel says, the high vibe acoustic has been serving him well. That's awesome. Yeah, that was a unique guitar. It's got the effects built in. I did a video on it probably a couple months ago now, I guess, right? Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Your studio looks like it could use a little feng shui, says Todd. Yeah, but dude, that's just me in here working. Like I grab a guitar and then I'm like, what about this part? I grab it, throw the other one on the couch, and then it lives there for the next few days. That's just how I roll. I'm not that neat. You know, it's a little bit of chaos. I cleaned up a lot in here from what it was a few weeks ago. I got a lot of stuff out, and you don't always see it on the camera, but it can get a little chaotic. Stuff on the floor, pedals everywhere. And I'm not the neatest guy. All right, it's probably about time I split, right? This has been fun this week. How about the Quad Cortex? I've seen your video on it. Awesome tones. Yes, I like it. Using it all the time. I used it for bass for something yesterday as well as to practice. I made a cool bluesy sound I was mentioning earlier in the chat. Yeah. Was a good chat, says Preston. Thanks, man. I'm glad you guys were here. We touched on a little bit of stuff we don't normally do, but I don't think it was controversial in any way, shape, or form. Remember my favorite book? Somebody go out there and read The Demon Haunted World this week and get back to me next week. Let me know what you thought. I love that book. It's so good. So good. I like Sagan a lot. Aaron says that he met me on tour with Melissa Etheridge, I think 2007 or 8. Wasn't on tour with her then. It was more like 2011 and 12. Yeah, the Hilton in Eugene. God, I do not remember playing Eugene, Oregon. But it must have been 2011 or 2012. Were you working there then? Because that was my tenure there with her in 2011, 2012, early 2013. I was with Melissa, which I miss her. Miss playing with her. It was fun. Lauren says, take good care. Thanks, Lauren. Sorry, I built the room too big. Thanks for being here. And have a great day. Are you watching the game, says Dory. Maybe in a bit. I got some work to do. I'm not the biggest football fan in the world, but yeah, I'll turn it on, see what's going on. Yeah, I'm a musician geek. Okay, time to split. Everybody have a great week. I'll see you next time. And I got to get some videos out this week. So, I've got one. Check this out really quick before I go. This is a fuzz. Look at the size of this thing. The flip out fuzz. In this, it's made in this wood box. It's crazy. It's a unique sounding fuzz that has a really aggressive filter that almost sounds like a stock wah. And it's also got flip out mode, which turns on like some sort of primitive sounding tone generator that you can tune. So think like coming through the fuzz, and you can tune it, and then you can play on top of it basically, and it'll create almost ring modulator type effect. And it's very, it's like really crazy sounding, kind of noisy, but if you tune it just right, you can get some really unique effects, lo-fi, and also some spitty kind of crazy sounding stuff with it. And so I came up with, I think, a pretty fun track where I'm playing this on like every single guitar part, including the bass and a baritone, and it's a big fat fuzzy wall of sound. So it's pretty fun. And they made some nice videos for this pedal. Look it up. It's the Screwed Circuits with a Z, circuit, Z at the end. Screwed circuits, flip out fuzz. And you can see some of their videos, which are super arty and kind of, I like them because they were like, I don't know, they're different. They made a nice presentation. So mine will be more my typical kind of thing. All right, everybody. Thanks again for doing the super chat. Remember, if you need kazoos or strings or guitar picks, Sweetwater links in the video description below. It always helps the channel, helps keep me going during the pandemic times. And you guys are so kind for all doing the super chat. I love you all, and I look forward to this every week. It's always therapeutic and enjoyable, and I learn something from you guys every week. So thanks for being here. Take care, you guys. Over and out.